Okay, so are we all ready to go?
I think so.
One more Pringle.
I want one more Pringle.
Come on, great.
I'm on Doritos.
He's too healthy for his own good, he is.
Oh my goodness me, what's that hamster food?
Not being able to speak is not the same as not speaking. You seem as if you like to talk. I like to let people talk who like to talk. It makes it easier to find out how full of shit they are.
What the hell did you just say?
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still
Anybody who has some knowledge of Kung Fu can easily defeat you.
and Steve Newby.
Man, you come right out of a comic book.
If you flash him, even for an instant, a defiant eye, he'll pluck it out. And if you throw any American sass his way, he'll snap your back and your neck like they were twigs.
You're not bothered, are you?
I love it. I'm waiting to see it work.
I just press it and you just be like, what? Honest to God. And that's everything. That's everything. Let it go, let it go. Okay. So, we going?
2, 3, 4. Am I pretty?
Oh, gorgeous. I love what you've done with your hair. Beautiful, your shading. The vertical lines on your clothing is great. Guys, welcome to the Kung Fu episode. Kung Fu episode, blah, 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 blah. Kung Fu podcast, episode 24.
Two.
No,
4.
20, no, don't start throwing out numbers. Don't start throwing out numbers. You'll just confuse everybody. Episode 24. Yes, join us. My name's James Still, and I'm here with Steve Newby. G&T on hand. And what have you got? What's your tipple tonight?
Nescafe.
Nescafe. Straight up. I've got my pink gin. So I'm like Liberace without the hair.
Don't forget, it's still the afternoon here, so if I have to go out and drive, then I can't have any of that.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Oh, you're
much
all respectable.
tighter restrictions.
Now. You're all respectable now. You've got you've got a bona fide job.
Yeah. I'm a proper instructor.
I'm an instructor now. I teach people to drive on the wrong side of the road. Right.
That's right.
Wow.
I teach Canadians to drive. And you know why I wanted to do it?
Why?
Because they can't go around islands, that's why.
I've watched Canada's Worst Driver, and that is going to be one of the best worst driver shows ever. It was on Netflix a while back, and oh my God, I can see what you mean. Like, fantastic, you know.
You've watched it.
Comedy gold. Oh, it's great.
I've experienced it.
Oh, I've experienced Canada's Worst Drive when I was driving around Toronto in rush hour. Thank you very much. Trying to get to the CN Tower in a massive Dodge Ram. It was great. I was get out of my way, get out of my way. And anyway, right. So we're on episode 24, which is really cool. We are going to shortly be joined by Rash. He's coming in for another part 2. And I did this thing for him. So every time we say Rash, you gotta go Rash. Right? Okay. You're right. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll see. He's got. I like, you know. I don't want to annoy Rash, but you know, we have a bit of a joke with him, don't we? So he's coming up soon. But before we carry on, we have got. Do you want to do the Marty McFly moments? Should we do some of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Just tell me what to do. I'm keen.
Well. Oh, Marty McFly. So as you know, guys, right, the Marty McFly segment is all about, you know, stopping Steve's legacy from being erased from history. So every time he gets a compliment, we've got to send it out. We've got to put it out to you guys. And you've had another lovely compliment from from Jim, the same guy as you read the compliment out last week.
No,
but it's still
last week. No, didn't. Was it a small one last week?
It was a small compliment.
I thought it was Ali last week.
We did. Was it? No, we did Ali and Jim together. So now Jim sent us another compliment for you, which
nice.
I absolutely thought was very sweet. It says, I first met Steve in the early 90s when he came to our club in Edinburgh. I was a first degree black sash. I didn't know then that he would take over the clubs in Scotland and become my instructor. He moved from Birmingham to the Scottish borders. With his instruction and vast knowledge of Kung Fu, I successfully passed my second degree and on to my third, fourth, fifth degree black sash before he moved back down south and is now living in Canada. Steve is a very good Kung Fu instructor with a vast amount of knowledge. I wish him every success in his classes. So that's nice.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, thank you, Jim. That was a really nice thing to say.
That's lovely.
And I hope you're healthy. I hope you're well, because I know he hasn't been the best of health lately.
Well, we extend our most sincere, thoughts to Jim there. And by the way, I should have Jim worried, and I'll show you why. Have you seen my attempt at making butterfly knives? So for all you listeners, these are a very rare, antique, bespoke collector's edition set of homemade butterfly knives. And how cool are they? Yeah. Bit of welding, What did you do during lockdown? I made some butterfly knives. So there you go. So homemade. They do the job. They're all right. Not as good as Jim's. Nowhere near.
They're good. You've done exactly the same design I gave Jim. They're exactly the same, except obviously had a round guard.
Yeah, he's got a round
square guard.
Well, it's harder to do a big round guard. But
he probably had the equipment.
He probably did, yeah. And he's not an amateur like me, so
yeah.
So that was my effort. So there you go. So see, I eventually got round to doing them. So that was
it. Jim made all our tiger forks and kwandos.
They were great.
They're the best,
weren't they? They were great.
They are the best, and still are the best.
Absolutely,
still are the best.
Absolutely. Didn't he use like a bus part in? He
worked in a like a place that fixed up buses and stuff.
Right.
The mechanic and that.
Right. Yeah.
And he used
I was standing on a bus gripping it, and I thought, this is like a tiger fork here, and I got a flat, because it wasn't it? It was that same materials that's on the bars that's stand up in the bus. It was great. Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. No, still going strong.
Really good. Yeah.
Were they
and I've got them, Jim, in case he's watching. I've got them here in Canada, so they're it's the only tiger fork of its kind in the whole of Canada, and the Kwando and butterfly knives, and made all those for me.
There you go. That's fantastic. Do you reckon you could take down a bear with it? Or are you going to just throw caution to the wind and get some big bear spray?
A big bear spray will do it.
Big bear spray will do it. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Right. So that was the Marty McFly moment. Oh, there you go. Very important, guys, that we have these Marty McFly moments on the Kung Fu podcast, because the old man does get some grief from time to time, which is what we will be talking about on the next podcast after this one. Yeah. Okay, so because I kind of made a promise to Rash, I said, Rash, we're not going to get controversial on this podcast if you're going to be on it. So I said, don't worry about that. You're safe with us. But for the next podcast, we have had it's been a fantastic, week on social media in terms of the odd comment here and there. So we'll be talking about that.
We love the comments. Yeah. It's not, here we are, look, and there you are, look. So you can see me and you can see James, and whenever you want to talk to us, you can talk to us. You want to argue the toss about something, it's great fun. That's why we got Rash on. We can argue the toss, so we can argue, our opinions and so on, and we have a great time. And it's not about us being right, because we're not always right. but all we can do is give our opinion from the base of our experience, which is what I'm here for, to give you experience.
And I'm just riding his coattails, everybody. So no, but but absolutely right. And the thing is, right, we have a right to answer. Like, if someone's gonna argue the point with us, which is what we encourage, we love that. But we have a right to answer back, right? That's only fair.
Yeah.
That's free speech, as long as we're respectful.
Yeah.
But to a point. Now, what kind of gets our goat is if you're going to, like, anonymously, post rubbish on YouTube and whatnot, you know, and you're not going to volunteer who you are to us, either privately or on YouTube. You know, if you're going to hide behind anonymity, then as far as I'm concerned, you're totally, you know, in the firing line. You're like, you know, you're up for it. So, you know, because, you know, until you come out to us and say who you are, then we can say, listen, you know, can we use your name on the podcast? If you don't want us to, we won't, but we'll still argue the point. But if you're going to, you know, maintain your anonymity, which is fine, but, you know, we can just then totally take the mick, you know, as best we can.
Everybody can make a complaint.
Yeah, that's fine.
And of course, we know of people that are, you know, have done things that are just totally stupid. And we've got, you know, we've made an awful lot of history over the last, you know, few years. We've got history with people. I've got history with people because obviously I've had a lot of good students and I've had a few really bad ones. And I'll never name them. I don't give them the credibility of naming them. But, you know, they have this kind of attitude where they're thinking, oh, you know, leave it alone and or whatever. But we'll talk about that next week. The thing is, what they forget is you can't change history. No. You cannot change history. So it doesn't matter what you say or whether you like it or not, you don't change history. So, you know, if you want to contact me and say something, then don't expect me to sit there and go, oh, okay.
oh, Mr. Newton. he just flicked the bird, everybody. He flicked the bird. Yeah. So, guys, you know, we ultimately we're here to talk about kung fu and, you know, whatnot.
Yeah.
And, but you know, but answering our critics, they sometimes give us great sort of fodder. You know, reference kung fu techniques and all the rest of it, and arguments for and against. Yeah.
Sorry, I just do want to say it's been a couple of days or maybe nearly a week or something since I had an email from one of our listeners who she sent me
right
of a video of herself.
Oh, right.
Well,
okay.
Of a video, she sent me a video of her doing the sword set, the first sword set, and she wanted me to critique it.
Okay.
And I promise you, I will critique it. I just, I've started a new job, and obviously it's been quite a new opener for me. So, getting the time to do it, but I will get it on the video. I'll get it on the screen, and I'll make comments. And what I'll do is rather than do a video back, I will just sort of make comments. You know, each second, you know, we'll stop it at certain points in the video, and I'll tell you the seconds I'm talking about and describe them. Okay. And that's basically
awesome. It. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
super.
But yeah, we get a lot of stuff like that where people are asking questions, and remember that my point of view is not the perfectly right point of view, because the way that forms work, the way that traditional martial arts work is just not, it's not this has to be the right way, that has to be the right way. It just has to be logical. It has to work. And, you know, but some people's, you know, idea of things working is different to other people's idea of what works and what doesn't. So, and sometimes both can be right, and many people can be right and think the different things completely. And that's because they're used to training with different size people, or maybe at different tempos and so on. So they have their own kind of direction. And that's why it's so good to talk about it, because then people go, oh, you know, I never thought of doing that. I never thought of doing that. And so that's what we're about, trying to
give your
life to people's training.
But, you know, like you said, you've got to, you know, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's that you're going to give a reason, right?
Yeah.
A logical reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, how do we define what logic is? You know, what would you answer that, Mr. Newby?
Well, I'm only giving my logic, okay? So when I critique someone who's doing a stick set, who has 6 inches of the stick out there, and tries to strike someone with it with 6 inches of stick, when the other guy's got a 6-foot stick.
Hang on. Are you
not logical?
Are you?
You telling me lies, yeah.
Are you jive talking?
Am I? I guess. But that's for another day.
So yeah, no, but absolutely right. That's what next week is going to be about. So we're having to revisit some old content.
People make comments, and of course we're going to comment back. And of course, if they ask opinions or give their own, then that's fine. Absolutely great. That we love it. We love it. And
hide behind anonymity. Like, we're approachable. You know who I am. You know who Steve is. Tell us who you are. Don't hide. If you're gonna, argue the toss with us, that's fine.
Yeah, and we'll never say your name. We'll make the point, because obviously each comment is worthy of screening, and we listen to the comments, and only the person who made the comment and us knows who it is. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna diss them because they made a comment, but we're just gonna give our opinion of, sort of tells you one thing that they believe in, and I say, well, it doesn't sound right, and then I give my opinion, and let's face it, that's why we've got the podcast. If you want to give your opinion, start a
effing. But all that being said, the name of the section where we talk about our YouTube comments is going to be called Jive Talking. So because I like the Bee Gees. No, I'm kidding. So I do like the Bee Gees, but
so what we're going to talk about before Rash comes on?
What else have we got to say? Oh, I don't know. I think that's about it, really. Oh, wait. There is one more comment we've had. Reference podcast 23.1, which was the geek podcast where you went in full on geek mode. And what did this listener say? She says, Amber Nectar. I knew he had it in him. Good old Mr. Newbie. Right? So basically, because you very rarely go into full-on geek mode, this particular listener was very, very sort of impressed with you going into geek mode. So there you go. Oh. She knew you had it in you.
So like I mention Chinese things.
You did. You mentioned Chinese things, and
right.
But
yeah. Only because you said I didn't know them. You told Rash I didn't know them.
Listen, I didn't say it in that way. I said, he probably doesn't know them, like off the cuff. But you took exception to that. And of course, Mr. Newbie has to be right.
They have to have an opinion. It's not necessarily right.
This is true. But that'll teach you for going off and leaving me. Eh?
Leaving you with Rash.
So yeah. I blame you. Anyway, guys, we are going to move on and introduce our first guest. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we like to welcome back the one, the only Rash. Listen, you're looking at me with disgust, Rash. What's wrong with you? What's wrong? It's fun. Anyway, hi, how you doing? Thanks for coming back.
Not too bad, thank you.
Good.
If only you knew there's a story behind that, because when I was fighting, they used to call me Rash the Flash.
See?
Flashy leg kicks, We used to kick people in the head quite often.
And when you stopped fighting, they called you Rash the Flash. Flash the Rash, wasn't it? Something
like that.
Brilliant. Honest to God. No, I was having a chat with Rash the other day between podcasts, getting some FaceTime with a Guardian, and Rash was telling me how well he's done in external competitions, and what was the name of that grappling competition that's quite in high esteem in the UK and across the world?
Well, I usually compete in ADCC and NAGA competitions in no-gi, but they're strictly no-gi competitions.
Yeah.
for people who don't know, people know what a kimono is. Japanese gi.
Yeah.
Oh,
have you got one of you? Oh, he's off. While he's off.
There you go, look.
Yeah.
That's a gi.
Yeah.
Okay. So, gi.
Yeah, he's got all the expensive clothes.
Gi's gone.
No gi. So, yeah, gi and no gi. So basically, no gi you can go bare top if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go bare bottom, obviously. But wear a rash guard or something like that. Yeah.
But you did quite well in this competition, in quite a few of them actually.
Yeah. So I've entered quite a few ADCC comps, and when I first started, at first ever comp, I entered as an intermediate because it was my first ever competition. I went in not as a novice or beginner, went straight in as intermediate level because I'd already been grappling for some years. And yeah, I won the first comp I went in, and I must have entered it. I don't know, not as many as 10, but under 10 ADCCs, and always medaled and won a couple.
Yeah.
So
so I thought it was fascinating, like how many of these competitions you've been to, and and like you're not just talking about it, Rash. You're actually going out there and competing, which is just amazing.
Well,
and doing really well.
It's bloody dangerous because when you compete in pro, I only competed in intermediate once, and then I went straight to pro because I wanted to do all my leg locks and all my neck cranks and stuff, nasty, horrible stuff, which actually, it's dangerous. If you get heel hooked or knee barred, you're talking surgery, properly done out of it for 6 months or to a year. I'd rather be punched in the face like I used to be. So maybe not ideal to be doing it at my age, and I would say I haven't got many years left in it, if any, really, because it is a young man's sport.
But it's the teaching of it and the promotion of a continuation from standing up fighting to floor fighting.
Yeah, it's pure grappling. And in comps like the ADCC and NAGA, the rules are open. In gi, the rules are much more limited, much safer. You're not allowed to do heel hooks of any kind. You're not allowed to cross the leg.
So you prefer no gi?
Yeah, because it's the truest representation of pure grappling, with minimal rules.
Yeah,
and that allows you.
Yeah, because they use the gis, don't they? You pull them around them, and you can use your sleeve and all that kind of thing.
So gi's got exclusive techniques to gi, but in no gi, what I was trying to say.
Do you think,
as a grappler, you can be creative as you like without restriction.
Right. Do you think that that people who train no gi grappling, have a problem transitioning to who train gi grappling have a problem transitioning to no gi grappling?
Okay, so traditional Brazilian jiu-jitsu is always in a gi. You always start in a gi. All your belts are ranked in the gi. There's no grading system for no gi, which I think it's been around long enough, and there should be a grading system for it in no gi, because what usually happens is people then go by the years they've been training to determine whether they fight in novice, beginner, intermediate, or advanced.
Right.
So
it depends if people are teaching it separately, doesn't it? If they're teaching it without the gi, then obviously maybe they can create some kind of grading system or whatever, or test people in that way. Yeah. But if they're not, then they're doing it together, then what's the point in having a grading system?
And there's a term called sandbagging, which I don't know if that crossover into kickboxing, where you've got a high grade competing in a competition in a lower division.
Yeah, right. I know what you mean.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's what. To start with, obviously I started in no gi, and then I do gi as well, but my gradings in gi came a lot later. So even though I was a low belt in the gi, actual physically a low belt, my grappling level was always higher. So I didn't want to sandbag, so that I wanted to enter in a higher division, but I wasn't allowed to do it down to politics and rules and all that sort of stuff.
So the way we've developed this conversation really is about sort of how you were applying that really in your the traditional martial arts, the kung fu, if you like, so that you are now, as we talked about last time, how you were really involved in stand-up situation, taking the technique to the floor to finish the person off. I'm writing a book at the moment, and in the book I've got this discussion about because I don't like grappling in self-defense because of the fact that you're going to end up on the floor, but I love the idea of getting people down to get up from them. You don't want to be lying on the floor with them in a lock, but you want to get them down. So obviously in the kung fu we have the sweeps and the foot throws and so on, but most people don't tend to use them that much or practice them that much because of the environment they're training in, or the fear of litigation, fear of injuries. And so, it's very rare that you can teach people to sweep and watch them sweep beautifully on a solid floor. Such as life, people get injured. And so people tend to get so far, do a punch, do a technique, especially if they use semi-contact as a basic rule. They do the semi-contact, then they walk away. And as they're walking away, less experienced people will just try and hit them in the back.
Well, that's what's happened to you, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what's happened to me. Yeah. So then I thought, okay, I'm not gonna walk away next time. So then I did the punches, and then I kicked the shit. Oh, sorry, I kicked his legs from under him, and he hurt himself. Laying on his back, he landed on his back, and it's happened a couple of times where people, they kind of won't accept the rules because their potential belief, and it's not a problem. But let's face it, when you train, you got to train to a certain specific rules that you both agree on. And when you're training with someone and you expect to be like, it's semi-contact, you score the point, you're well done, touch gloves, let's carry on, and then you turn away and they jump on your back, and it's kind of a bit stupid. So a lot of people don't train sweeping, they don't train throwing. But you've taken that to a level where you have got a floor where you can actually take it down, and you get them down, and you put them in a lock, and then the decision is, in a self-defense environment, shall I break their arm? Shall I choke them out? Shall I do whatever? Or shall I just get up? But the fact is, you took them down, and the fight therefore should be over. If once the person's on the ground, that's really where the fight should end, and that's whether you're doing self-defense. So the argument is that often grapplers will choose to go down there and stay down there, but then they have a problem, getting up. And fighters, standing up, punching and kicking, have a problem getting down. So it's kind of, you've got to have a mixture of two. And that's what I love that you are doing in your training, that you are literally standing up fighting, and then you get into a clinch, and then you get them down, and then you perform on the floor so you can control them and end the fight. It's a punch in the face is not necessarily going to end a fight. Okay, they're going to start throwing punches back. So if you can punch them in the face and then grab them, and then take them down, grab their neck or whatever, and then get them to the ground, whether you're trying to get them to land on their head, whether you're intending on locking them or breaking their arm, is irrelevant. The fact is that you're trying to finish the fight down on the ground. That's what I like. I'm not a fan of grappling, but I love to get them to the floor. That is important. And my way has always been a punch, kick, sweep, and that's all I've ever done. Whereas you now are taking it to a point where you punch, kick, and throw, and then hold down, and that's the bit I love about what you've shown us on the videos and so on. So talk a bit about that, why don't you?
Yeah. So traditionally, karate, kung fu, they do block, counter, take down, and then they sort of pin and do a strike, wouldn't it? And then back away. That was always the way, common way. So, like you've described it perfectly for me, with all those components of the continuation of grappling. But obviously, I train it in, I specialize in stand-up. Specialize in kung fu, specialize in kickboxing. I specialize in grappling, and I teach them separately, and I also merge them. And this is a process that you're talking about. So, and when I merge them, the content is less, because you don't want to be on the floor for any given period, as we discussed last time. And that's a massive key thing. And
but people are people are put off grappling because they don't want to end up on the floor. Because
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm put off grappling or teaching any kind of grappling, or even if I knew it, simply because of the fact I look at students and I go, okay, she's like a girl weighing 7 stone or whatever, and if she's getting on the floor with a big guy, she's got no chance of escape. And so therefore I don't want to teach her to be, okay, you get in this clinch, you get on the floor, and then this is what you do, because she's really not got a chance to do it.
Good friend of mine, Paul Sutherland, he runs Trojan Free Fighters MMA gym. One of his female students got attacked, and she was training with him MMA, mixed martial arts, and obviously she knew what you call a leg triangle, where a guy had got her down and was in between her legs, and she managed to triangle her legs around his neck and choke him unconscious, and it worked. And she knocked on someone's door. So that's a perfect success story.
It's a good example, but it, unfortunately, it is, it's a training that not every girl is going to pursue. Simply, I mean, there's an awful lot of ethics in it, isn't there, nowadays, where people are worried about litigation, they're worried about sexual kind of assault accusations and so on. And I think it kind of really plays on instructors' minds that. And obviously, if they're really into grappling and grappling only, that is where they're going to go. But when you start adding to it in Kung Fu, people start thinking, well,
it's interesting to say that, because in my grappling and jiu-jitsu classes, the women that come in, it's never an issue. They just get on with it. There's a given, that you don't grab in a certain breast area. A male has to accommodate that, but generally, females that I've come across get stuck right in. They're hungry to bloody tap us out. They're hungry to do the guys. All the girls I've come across.
So I can see how useful it can be. I can definitely see how useful it can be. But like I say, when you're in a situation where you're out in the street, and then it becomes a bit of a, shall we say, a risk. If you're going down and staying down, right? So it's a great idea to be able to escape. It's a great idea to be able to trap, possibly lock or damage a joint, and then get up and run, as opposed to sort of hold him down. Like, for instance, that girl holding him down and choking him, it's an individual situation. So it's obviously a very useful, successful success story, if you want. But then when you look at a guy doing it or whatever, or a fight situation in a nightclub or outside a nightclub, or when you see lots of people, lots of, they're going to call their mates, or their mates are just going to, even if they're not their mates, they'll butt in.
Forget it. It is super high risk. And again, I've got stories, not stories, experience,
anecdotes,
people getting kicked in the head all the time. And a friend of mine who does jiu-jitsu in Cheltenham, I'm not going to mention his name, but there's brothers, so they'll know who I'm talking about. And the one got in a scrap, and it went to the ground, and he's good. He's a purple belt, I think, and he was doing fine against this guy, and then his mate come in and kicked him in the mouth, knocked his teeth out. And he looked in a bad way. He got done. Basically.
So if he can get down, he's got to get up again. And so part of your training, getting them down, getting into a lock, turning it into a lock or turning it into a break or damage of a joint is the ideal situation. When if you're standing up, you're fighting, you get them down to the ground with an injury so they can't get up again. And you've got to get up, though. You've got to get up, because otherwise lying on that floor wrestling is going to be dicey in a self-defense situation. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Of course, you've just said that it does. That girl was successful, but it adds risks when you're down there, especially 100%. If you have the opportunity to get up and run is far, it's far more better.
So yeah, Steve, I 100% agree with you. You need to get up at all costs. You need to get back onto your feet. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've been formulating a fundamentals grappling syllabus. So regardless of what style you do, it is aimed at for our style, and it'll be useful to karate, to taekwondo, to update their self-defense, if you like, that they teach, and it'll cover those ranges of grappling from standing encounters. So people trying to choke you standing, front headlock, rear side headlock, then attempted takedown. So I've done defense against, early defense, medium defense, late defense when you're going to go down, and then counters on how, depending on how they end up on you, whether they end up in full mount or a side or in between your legs. And a range of things to control the striking element, to close it down, and to kind of strike when you can off your back and get back to your feet.
Yeah,
and I formulated a syllabus for that, which I don't know when I'm gonna.
That's what I love about watching what you've done, and I think the point to be made there is, if you're in a situation where you think you're going to fall down or you think you're going to be pulled down, then it's better to go down and fight what you know down there to get back up again than to try to struggle standing on one leg while maybe that you've tried to kick them and they grab the leg and you're bouncing around on one leg for a sec. You've got no chance. They're just going to take you down. So if you're going to fall down, you may as well go down under your own steam. There's an awful lot of, things that you obviously practice within the Lau Gar syllabus that obviously would do that. I mean, if you kick and someone grabs your leg, what can you do? You've got to go down. It's better for you to go down under steam, your own steam, than it is to fall awkwardly and not be able to fight. So there's obviously a lot of things you can do with the other leg. Then you can, get them down. And that's where your, syllabus comes in then, where you can actually then reposition yourself and get back on top of the fight. So and that's what I love. I love it.
Yeah. So I've done a fundamentals of grappling. This is something that everyone should learn. And then I've done a beginner level, intermediate level, advanced level, and coaching level. So
can you give us an example of the fundamentals, Rash? What would you say? What would you instill in a complete novice to grappling? What would be the sort of first thing you might want to approach them with?
Those key things I just mentioned. Defense against rear naked choke and front headlocks, and things that you end up. You start off striking. And then one person grabs on for dear life because their head's been pummeled, and then comes the headlock, So all those common positions that you get into, and that's a standing grapple.
Yeah.
And then, before it gets to the ground, and you get, taken down to the ground. So, I just mentioned those things when I was describing to Steve earlier. But where Kung Fu people got advantage, and where I had an advantage before I started grappling, I've already been doing joint locks for over 30 years from in a standing position.
Yeah.
And I know endless wrist locks, endless arm bars and variations of arm bar and rotation and shoulder locks, standing chokes. I kind of knew some time ago, and manipulation of the head to gain.
And I was just going to say, if I can interject there, I think one of the worst things, to be fair, and I know it was maybe for a financial sort of construction, the GY shoe, what I was going to talk about was the fact that you know, with Lau Guardian, they separated kickboxing from traditional. They separated self-defense from traditional. And so they start, and I think people who did traditional then didn't kind of see the locks and the throws and the headlocks that then they started to pursue in the GY Shu self-defense syllabus. And they didn't apply the two together. They kind of separated them to give them separate classes. But to be honest with you, that dilutes the concept of a full martial art. Same with taking kickboxing out of it. It dilutes the ability to fight. So now, today, we end up with people who can do great sets but can't fight, can do fighting but can't grapple or lock because of the fact that it's all been taught separately. And I don't think it should be. I think it should be.
Wasn't the point of the GY Shu to be an easily accessible self-defense syllabus for people who didn't want to do it?
Exactly. Yes, it was. It was. But the people who were doing Kung Fu didn't get to train it because it was kind of taken out of context, if you know what I mean. In many clubs, I'm not suggesting every club, you know, but in many clubs they went, oh, right, we do a separate class of self-defense. No, Kung Fu is self-defense. So stop separating it. Fighting. Kung Fu is fighting. Stop separating it. Because, you know, build it. And you, of course, are a good example of how you haven't separated it and you've reapplied it in both standing and fought and down on the ground. And this is why we really wanted to get you on.
Yeah, but that's only because I teach application as I teach the syllabus.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people didn't, you see. They teach the sets, they go home.
But, and James mentioned last time, a lot of the joint locks and stuff come later, but they are there earlier. You know, you don't, I teach.
They're in the first set.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But, which we're discussing a bit as well about my principal applications. You don't want to give too many people too much stuff early on, because they need to grasp the fundamentals and the basic. They need to do the primary first. They need to become competent in primary before you start adding in other stuff. I'll come back. The GY Shu I think is okay. You know, it's one of those things. It's a get a good quick fix, maybe bolt-on package. You know, want to have a handful of self-defense stuff straight away. Kind of like my fundamentals thing, you know.
Yeah, GY Shu. I mean, as a completely separate entity. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's good to teach people who don't do martial arts a self-defense principle. There's so many different martial arts out. Well, not martial arts, but I guess classes or groups that profess to teach the ultimate self-defense without having to do martial arts. Saw one the other day. So 60 minutes, you can learn all your self-defense, and then they've got people grappling AK-47s and pistols and stuff like that, knocking the pistols out there, and you go, yeah, you'll learn that in 60 minutes. I'm sure you will. Dick. So, but you've got all those people teaching these self-defense modes, you know, and creating like the ultimate self-defense that no martial art can do. You don't need martial arts in order to do it. Martial arts is a journey, right? It's not aimed specifically at self-defense. It's a benefit you in self-defense, benefits you in health, benefits you in, I guess, you know, a social kind of not standing, but just makes you a little bit more humble, a little bit, and so on. So it's kind of, it benefits you in many, many ways. It's not solely nowadays, particularly for the purpose of killing each other. In the old days, but then they would have trained for that, you know, but now they don't train for it. So it's not the be all and end all. When people join a martial art, they're not there going, oh, I want to kill someone. They're there going, I want to learn this beautiful art, and I like the look of the way they do that with their kicks, high kicks and so on, gymnastical martial arts and beautiful wushu type martial arts. They're not there thinking they're going to be able to beat anyone. Unfortunately, there's a lot of teachers out there that then believe so much that will defend them, and as you go on, you realize that actually it won't. So there are many martial arts out there that actually have absolutely no idea of how fighting would work. and they don't apply it. So they stick to their little groups and they maintain. And these little groups get bigger and bigger, by the way, because they fight within their own, process, within their own organizations, and never see the outside world.
Can I mention a controversial subject, the Lau Guardian knife defense?
Yeah, by all means.
And this is my opinion.
That's what we're all about.
Yeah, the way I look at it is an introduction of China at a stage. Okay, so if you look at it like that, I wouldn't say it's time old, obviously, put together some time ago for a request, or maybe we should have a knife defense. And I wouldn't advise, again, my opinion, that people take that as gospel, that it is a knife defense. Okay, I advise, when I teach my students, I say, no, this is not a knife. This is an introduction to Chin Out, introduction to timing, movement, getting your body out the way, countering, and then applying some sort of Chin Out. Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that you could extrapolate knife defense from it, Rash, but you have to train it very, very, very hard and seriously?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but if you hung on that, because a lot of people don't practice it enough, and
100%.
You hung on it, and you went out and you got in a knife. Someone got in a knife confrontation, and they say, "Oh yeah, I know."
Well, that's
knife defense. You're going to get yourself killed.
Yeah. That's the same with any part of the syllabus. Is a vehicle. The knife defense is a vehicle to introduce you, as you say, to the knife defense and the locks that you can apply to a knife. But you're right, absolutely. Never go out there expecting to be capable of defending yourself unless you've built on that basis, which is just a vehicle to get you to the next stages. And obviously, the more you train and the bigger stages you get to, like yourself, okay, I can sweep and I can get people down, but that's about it, right? After that, I've got to extrapolate that. I've got to build up on that and become, a floor fighter in order to succeed in that level. So that's the same with all syllabus. Do a hand block, for instance. Yeah, you're right. It ain't going to work because all you're doing is a block. Blocks aren't going to work necessarily.
Well, this is in relation. Sorry, this is just going back, tagging it onto the end of last podcast. Rash, you kind of finished it on a bombshell. You sort of said that Lau Guard works and it doesn't work, and then you used the example of hand block number 1, and you said sort of 9 out of 10 times in a real fight, you're not going to get hand block number 1 off, and that's where we're going now. So yeah, go ahead, Rash.
All right. Well, I just finished my thing about knife defense.
Yeah.
When I teach that, I'm quite clear to my students that don't use it in a fight, okay? But use the principles of movement, getting yourself out of the way, the thing of offering your body and then moving offline, and those kind of things, perfect. But what I also do, so I'm not giving them any sort of false information, if you like, for a real situation. But what I also do is I teach my own, what I think of control and restraint of knife defense alongside it. So they're getting the Lau Guard syllabus knife defense, and they're also getting, the control element, and like seizing, controlling the knife hand, the stab hand, 2 onto 1, 2 grips in it, and then you're stopping them changing grips and kind of all that sort of stuff, and hitting as hard as you can when you get opportunity. But you need, in any knife competition, you need to control the knife hand.
And it's not just about that as well, because what you're doing is adding to that knife defense, which again we talked about. Yeah, but I would add to that, the kind of things you can improvise weaponry. I would suggest that you can improvise, getting on the floor, for instance, in a one-to-one situation, not with more than one person. Same as grappling, you don't want to be on the floor, but your safest place, if you can't defend against a knife, is on the floor where you can kick out and scream. But what can you do?
Knife on the floor is a different story. Yeah. That's another level, and I've done some stuff on that as well.
Yeah, and, I'm not talking about the knife wielder on the floor. I'm talking about a girl being threatened with a knife.
Oh yeah, I'm just throwing that in as a You know, there's something else to think about, you know, when someone presents a knife when they're on top of you.
Yeah.
But you know, grappling does come into its own there.
Yeah,
You really do control limbs, and you can sweep and all sorts, you know. Anyway,
so sorry, go on.
He's going to quiz me about my last comment on.
No, Rash, you got to justify it. You got to justify it.
Right.
But I think in reality, he just has justified it.
I know. I'm having fun. I'm having fun. But I'd like you to elaborate on what you mean. I know we've kind of talked about it with the knife defense and how it's an idea, and so are the hand blocks. But you know.
Okay, so the way I see martial arts, again, lots of, as I mentioned last time, lots of different reasons for doing it. Fine, but it is a fighting art, and where I'm going to say it works and it doesn't work, in an applicable situation when you have a compliant partner and you're working drills and you get them to punch on a line, you get everything to work, and you can make everything work, everything in the sets, you know, you might have to adapt it depending on your size or build or whatever, and your strength, you know, some, I shouldn't say strength, but you know, especially your size, you might have to adapt it, but you should be able to get everything to work within movements contained within a set. Yes. However, what I meant by it doesn't work in a street fight, or that one particular thing reference to the hand block. The only way I can describe it is like being a mathematician, and you learn lots of formulas and equations, and you're into mathematics, and you're a mathematics professor, and you know all this stuff, but you'll hardly ever use any of it in real life. Okay, and the same applies to Lau Guardian and a lot of traditional martial arts. You'll learn all this stuff, but you'll never use it in a fight. You'll seldom get it off. You'll seldom do a harvest hand block. You'll seldom do tiger down the mountain and, you know, grab someone's throat and rip it out. You know, so
do you advocate training them, Rash, or are you
just saying? What I'm saying is, if you're into it and you're interested in it, like I am, like we are as martial artists, then you'll continue to learn because of your interest. But from a reality point of view, a fight is over quite quickly, or it should be done quite quickly, and you'll use a minimal amount of stuff, and you'll use anything you've ever learned, providing you're competent at it. But if you're not competent, it will never come out.
Right.
So that's my point. Is that there's only a minority of things that will work in a real life situation.
You only need a minority of things to work, but you've got to train every avenue, because you have lots of different types of people that will attack you in lots of different circumstances.
But we're training avenues that are like this, which is huge. Whereas you could.
What do you mean we're training big avenues, Rash? What do you?
Well, Kung Fu is a big avenue.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. I'm saying you could give me hand block number 1, and we can train it and train it and train it and train it. I can do it on the outside, on the inside, blah blah blah. I can do it from release, grab, throw, lock. So at what point does this become, you know, a massive avenue where, you know, I understand the scope of what we do can be quite large, but isn't it our job as practitioners to reduce not consciously reduce the knowledge we've got, because we don't have time to think in a fight. But if we don't train these things, surely when we need a response, whatever it might be that, you know, it might be that. It's got to be there, in there.
This is what I said last time. It takes a long time to be any good at it, or to be proficient at it.
Right.
You know?
So
it's, if you want to get hard, get fast, quick, you know, get fighting mode.
Yeah, you're not going to use those hand blocks. That's why that's why you don't see hand blocks like that in a self-defense situation, because they're not going to work. You're right. I want to bring you to. I'm going to give you a simile. Okay, you just use mathematics. I'm going to use English. So when you're a kid, and I say this to James all the time, and I say it to all my students, you are starting off at school drawing huge letters A, B, and they mean nothing. The alphabet means nothing. The syllabus means nothing. That is what the alphabet is. But when you start to put those words together, you start to put those letters together to create words, now you can start understanding the language of those words. More importantly, some people will only ever understand the most basic, primitive language. Other people go on to be able to write novels, right? And it's all the same techniques. It's all the same letters. So it's totally dependent on the individual that trains those things. So when you talk about, as you say, the syllabus, and you talk about hand block number 1 as an example, you will approach it in one way where you'll say, well, I want to do it as this is the first principal move I would do. With me, it tends to be, moreover, okay, I see it as a construct from a basic fighting stance. You never do a fighting stance in a street, okay? Initially, in other words, someone attacks you and you don't go, yeah, like that, right? It's just not going to happen, because if you do that, all you're doing is encouraging people to smack you. But if someone does throw a punch, you can quickly cover yourself. That, in effect, becomes that block, okay? So if you are going on the outside or whatever, that might not block it. That one is the 3rd and 4th. So you got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So effectively, you're moving back, and you're not stepping back. Remember, you cannot step back. We were talking about this earlier. Everyone says step back, block, and punch. No, what you're doing is stepping to consolidate your position, to make it stronger position to fight from. So if someone is coming onto you to grab you or to punch you or whatever, and you're trying to cover yourself, at the same time you're attacking them. So as you step back, your hands are going out. Your hands actually stay where you were. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you're not stepping back. You're literally consolidating your position and forming a principal attack or defensive position. And so my argument there, when you say like number 1 hand block doesn't work, is totally depends on what you're using it for. And of course, as you said, how much you're going to practice it. So that's I've done. So, that's my pennies.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I agree and I understand. Again, it does work and it doesn't work. So you might get it off, brilliant. But from my experience and the fights I've seen and the flurry of punches that come, you know, you're covering basically. You're closing, covering, moving, or getting out of range to break. But you may use it in transition, and that's where Lau really comes into its own, because the transitional movement is phenomenal. And to transition, to press, to seal, to close, and then work off limbs to find your way in. This is where we have a strength.
My point is about the syllabus is everything can be used, as you say, like that or not used, whatever. And you're talking about whether it can be used in a flurry of punches, etc. But when we train, we often people neglect the stance work as well. So, and a lot of martial arts, they don't pursue the weaponry, and the weaponry teaches the capability of moving with a weapon. You know, in other words, the weapon is doing its own thing, but you're stepping with it to control it. Okay, and so in the event that you haven't got a weapon, that's the stance work is so important, because as you say, flurry of punches this way, don't stand there, don't let the punches come to you, change direction, it gives the punches a different value then. So if you're moving off to the side, then it becomes a one punch rather than the other hand. So, and then of course you're going into your grappling, or you're going into your, so trying to close that gap, etc.
I got a question for Rash. Do you think, Rash, that the problem that we're facing is the syllabus, in the fact that it's quite, the way it's perceived is quite limited? Do you think does that inhibit us to learn as martial artists in Lau Gar, being the syllabus?
I don't think the syllabus is limited. I think
I don't think so either.
It's down to the instructor and the instructor's competency of teaching it, understanding it, and then being able to teach it. It's down to his or her knowledge, really.
The alphabet is limited.
26 letters.
I can. It leads nicely onto something else I wanted to talk about, which may help people, help Kung Fu enthusiasts and anyone from any style actually. So last week I keep mentioning this word competency all the time. What do I mean by competency? And a lot of people think they can do it or have false competence, but everyone's guilty of it. I was guilty of it in the past. Oh, I've got this, I know this now, what's the next thing? I can do it. And that's not the case at all, because so here's an assessment, a way of assessing yourself or assessing others that I formulated. So if you were to take a technique, and we'll use a strike because that's an easy example to use. If you just did a simple pinch or a straight punch, and you hit a pad or a bag, and you just hit it the first time and you think, oh, that wasn't very good. And the next time you hit it again, and you try and hit it harder than the time you've hit it before. So you could assess that punch. You could give it a score out of 10. Oh, that was a 5 out of 10. Right, now I'm going to improve on that. 6 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. And then you go on a period of improvement, a gradual, and then all of a sudden you're hitting 7 out of 10 with an occasional 8, and then 8 out of 10, occasional 9. You see where I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So what you're doing, and when you've been training consistently for a long time and you keep practicing that, your first punch, you'll start at a 7 and then hit an 8. And then if you're a higher grade, you should be starting at an 8 and hitting an occasional 9. So that depends on your training and your competency. Now you could apply that same grading system or analysis, of rating your technique to every single technique, to your number one hand block, to your any palm strike or wrist strike or whatever, or parry, swinging bridge.
Yeah.
How good is it? So you need to go. What I'm trying to say is, you need to go on a journey with it. So people say, "Oh yeah, I've got this now. I've learned this in my set. I've got it. What's next?" But you haven't got it because you haven't trained it to that element of competency, and that is a good way to do it. Go on, Jay.
Go on.
So what I was going to say is that you've killed my flow.
That's what I'm here for.
Go on, you can ask. Yeah.
How much of that competency that you're talking about, training, and you're saying you want from the off, you want a 7, 8 out of 10, you want to get in that, zone. How much of that is physical and how much of it is mental? Okay. What I mean is, if I've got if I'm going to hit a bag, right, like you just gave me an example of, and I go up to that bag and I say, oh, whatever, hit it. But if in my mind, I'm thinking, right, I'm going to give it to him, bang, like that. That to me is a combination of the physical and the mental. But without the mental side, I'm not going to be prepared to drive it in, Yeah. So how much of it is mental? How much of it is physical? When we're looking at how how we rate our competency.
Nice question. Both. My answer to that is both. But when you're training, you can train it in different ways. So you can train it without the focus of smashing someone's head, and you're just hitting a pad and you're working your power. You're developing your power and trying to increase that, and that's great because you're getting into that mode of hitting an 8 or a 9 all of the time. And when you need it, you'll hit an 8 or a 9 in a real, and you won't have to. But you also do, this is where the spirit element of training Kung Fu comes in. You do need to train your mind and spirit as well. And I don't think you can train. You can't. Well, you could if you really wanted to train like that all the time. Like, I'm in a fight. Everything I do is in a fight. I'm gonna smash him. I'm gonna hit him. I'm gonna smash his head in. Or you could have that focused intent of hitting someone all the time. But I don't think it's. I think it's overkill.
It's not necessarily practical either. And I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a funny thing.
You're gonna be buggered, aren't you? After a while.
But, yeah. Have you ever, Rash,
Yeah.
been with friends and you've trained like that and you're going, oh, bump, 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 I'm ready to hit anyone.
Oh, you're going to crack
Then
them.
a friend comes up and goes, yeah, and they hit you and you didn't respond because you're not in the zone.
Yes.
Because in order to make it work, you've got to be in that danger zone. You've got to create, you've got to switch. Yeah. And of course, when you're with friends or a little girl comes up and kicks you in the nuts and you just go in, why didn't I block that? Well, because she wasn't in the zone, because you didn't see it. You didn't see it. I've done classes like, and you're just going, oh, just do this, and I had this little kid about 5 years old, and he jumped up in the air and punched me straight in the face, and I'm going, well done. Because you're not in the zone. You've got to, you said yourself, you know, as you say, you've got to train that mental that James mentioned, that mentality has got to be there 100%. If you haven't got that mentality, then you can't tell the difference between reality and you know, play.
So as a teacher, that is one of the most difficult things to teach. And in some instances, you can't teach it.
It's got to be, it's the individual.
So you have to put them on the path to it, and they have to instill it. And the best way to learn is go and have a fight. Because you come back.
But isn't that what competitive fighting and competition is about?
Yes and no, but
it gives them that feeling, that atmosphere, the apprehension, the fear, and that they wouldn't get in a class in a bit of sparring.
Yeah, yes and no to a beginner. But after, when you become an experienced kickboxer and you're sparring regularly, you're never trying to kill each other or take each other's head off. Well,
no, but you're in the zone. Nevertheless, you're in the zone. You're responding. You're reacting.
For response and so on, which is fine. But I mean, I do full contact training as well, my guys, and they do full contact sparring. Not all the time, and I don't recommend it really, because I don't think we as humans are designed to be rocking our brains in a skull.
No, you're going to wear out pretty quick.
But you know, if some of my fighters are working up to a full contact competition, then they have to do they have to do rounds of full contact sparring, and they wear all the headgear. And you know what? Again, under controlled circumstances and under the supervision of an instructor, this is a tip and advice to everyone who trains whatever style. Do that. Get a solid full contact head guard. Get some 14-ounce gloves, and have a full contact spar. Say, agree with your partner. You can hit me as hard as you want. I can hit you as hard as I want. You can knock me out. I can knock you out, and I can kick you as hard. And see what happens, because it will change the way you spar, and you won't, because loads of people are used to doing semi.
You'll be far more defensive as well, and the fight will last much shorter.
Yeah, well, it can go on, but in sparring. But what I'm trying to say is that anything against someone who's experienced, anything you throw out and it's not quick enough, it's a mistake, and you're going to get countered, and you're going to get countered on the button. It's not going to be tapping. You know, we're so used to tapping.
Well, it's how many boxers throw so many punches out and they never hit, because the idea is not to get hit. So it's not about throwing the punch out; it's about making sure you don't get hit in the first place. But that brings me to, you know, what we saw on video. Me and James, we saw these people with this big head on.
You know, like the massive
so they could do full contact. It completely defeats the object, because you can't actually move. The guy can then hold you down.
One of those big suits.
That's the one. Yeah.
Like a Michelin man.
So what?
They're trying to make it real, but then they take the reality completely away from it, because they've got no skill. They think that hitting the thing hard is somehow real, but it's not. It's hitting a person hard, not a bloody big object. And and it's not about you hitting them. It's about them being capable of defending it. How many times do you score a point? How many times do you have to throw a punch to score a point? Hundreds. How many times, you know, well, in order to win, you only have to throw one punch, don't you, in semi-contact? How many times do you have to stop the person from hitting you? Hundreds. So the defense goes to show that, you know, defense is a little bit more important, you know. And of course, that defense can be construed as counter-attack and counter-defense, if you want, or so. But it is important that the person has got to know how to defend themselves. So when you get these big pads on, there's no way you're going to be able to protect yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you know, free open hand sparring, and obviously I do sparring with MMA
bag gloves. Like bag gloves kind of thing, fingerless bag gloves.
They're not. Bag gloves are still not ideal, because they're meant for hitting the bag, so they're quite thick, and you know, I wouldn't let my students spar with bag gloves, because
quite hard, aren't they, Rash?
Yeah, they're too heavy. So you need proper MMA gloves, which have got like 8-ounce padding.
Okay.
And, so you can tap each other and make contact, but bag gloves are too hard.
But the fingers are free to be able to manipulate.
Yeah. So you can, and for what we do, they're perfect. The original Bruce Lee Bong Sao gloves, which are huge. I think they're too big, but obviously we've modernised them, haven't we?
I think they were baseball gloves, weren't they?
Something like that. But good concept, and that's where the MMA glove came from, really.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. Sorry, Rash, go on.
Yeah, go on.
I thought it was interesting you mentioned about the mentality when you said you can't teach that in a class, like that element. And I don't think you can teach that, because when you're in a situation, if you ever get in a confrontation, some people fight, some people run. You'll know what kind of person you are at that split second. Absolutely. And you'll do something. Yeah. But you can teach. You can train people. You can give them an attitude in the class to
create an atmosphere.
But you can't teach that. And I was thinking, I was just wondering, how important do you think that element is? That sort of the unknown element, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I reinforce that message all the time. I clearly say no one's got a right to put a hand on you. No one's got a right to damage you. If they do, you hit them as hard as you can, and or if they try to, and I instill it in them. Obviously, like I say, most classes now are quite a relaxed atmosphere. We're training for sport training.
You've got to be, haven't you? Because you're getting people who actually are not martial artists.
Yeah,
really.
But I can only put people on the path, James, and then let them.
Sure. I think that's all anyone can do. Yeah.
I think instilling, correct mental attitude. You don't want to put too much on your students' shoulders. You want to let them get on with it a bit, and then when they're ready for that.
Some will be ready faster than others. Some will never. Yeah.
You instill it later on.
Yeah.
I don't instill it straight away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to practice hard, aren't they? They're going to go, oh, bang, straight away. No, you want them just to practice.
Yeah. Sometimes you get people who are too tense. They come in and they're just bullies, and they don't intend to be bullies. They don't know how strong they are sometimes, especially big people. And I think you've got to create an atmosphere, and within that atmosphere, you'll be able to judge for yourself who's capable, who's going to respond, and who isn't. You'll also be able to judge who's a bully. Again, unintentional bully. I'm not suggesting that just because they're throwing hard punches that they intend to hurt someone. It's just that they don't know their own strength, and they think that's what you're supposed to be doing. They have no concept of how to protect their partner, because obviously the more partners you hurt, the less partners you have to train with, the less capability you're going to have in the end. So eventually everyone's going to have a skill that you don't have, and you'll just rely on your brawn. And then one day some big guy's going to come in who's a lot bigger than you. Your brawn's worth jack, isn't it? It's worth nothing because you trained brawn instead of learning the techniques. So, and a lot of martial arts clubs are like that too, where they develop, you've got to kill him, you've got to kill him, you've got to do this and do that. Everyone's like that. And then a big guy comes, and every time a big guy comes, someone else leaves because they get at the back of the pile, they get hurt.
So going back to this competency thing I was talking about, the next important stage, well, it's not next, related to what I was saying, is that not enough people in traditional martial arts or kung fu or not kickboxing, kung fu or karate or whatever, they don't hit bags or pads. They don't hit enough things. They can look good, perfect technique, go up and down the line, turn up every week, tidy uniform, look pretty handy, but they don't hit anything. So they don't go on a journey of competency, of building up that strength of hit, and also the conditioning. Because if you've never hit anything in your life and then you have to hit someone, the obvious thing is you can break your hand. And
well, that's why boxers wear stuff all the time.
I had a student once, and he said, I got in a fight the other week, this is years ago, and he came back and he said, I said, what happened? And he said, I did this and it never worked. I said, well, how often have you practiced that? Have you ever hit anything with it? He says, no, just sort of try it because we did it in class. Okay, well, you're not any good at it, are you? Yet, you know. So I made a point of just training that particular one thing until he got it competent and he got it hitting reasonably hard. And you know, it's like doing a palm strike on a pad. You could just do like that, but then you could bang really hard, and then, you know, building up, and then the people around you look at it and go, "Oh, I wouldn't want to be hit by that. That'll flatten someone's nose." And then you know it's good enough. Plus, it instills confidence when you train it, and you go on that grade, and you're hitting a 7 out of 10 and an 8 out of 10 and 9 out of 10. It instills a confidence in the person or the student, because he thinks, you know what, I can hit reasonably hard.
So if you don't have attitude in your class, you're not going to have skill in your class, really, in terms of fighting. You're just going to have a class of people that like doing sits. You're going to have a wushu class.
And that's the problem. You know, this is a real martial art, and this is when students go, well, I've got it now, and I'm looking at them going, no, you haven't got it, because you can't. Okay, use it then. Show me how hard this back of your wrist strike is on this pad, and then they'll do it, and it's a 3 out of 10 or 2. You know. So until they, and this is the message for everyone, if you've got to take the components out, train them, and this is why it takes a long time. If you think you have to do that for everything, and I have, you know, because you can, you know, I've obviously got the time on my hands to do it, but at some point, it also becomes transferable, because once you're used to generating force at a higher level, you know, the other thing is there's certain strikes that you don't need 100% force, like a ping choy.
Or you could say there's certain targets that you don't need 100%.
Exactly. So, you know, they need to be taken into consideration as well. You know, so yeah, there's more to it.
Poor Bobby's good for that, isn't he?
Great. Poor Bob.
Oh, Bob. Yeah.
Bob is a great.
I was going to put him in on my share screen. I'll do it when you ask me about Dim Mak.
Oh, Rash.
Yeah.
You brought it up. What do you think of Dim Mak?
Okay. Dim Mak. Here's the truth. Or my Dim Mak journey, if you like. So when I was younger, in the 80s, there was a martial arts shop on Barton Street, and it was only open Friday and Saturday, and Saturday, you know, that was the meeting place of all martial artists from Gloucester. Used to, you know, some people used to come in from Cheltenham as well, and they just used to come into the shop, and it was a social gathering then. You know, you used to get the characters in there, and there was this guy called Neville, and he's come in and do his nunchuckers and take them off the shelf and do a little display, and I used to always go, you know, that I was only a kid. Obviously I couldn't obviously I couldn't afford the books, so I used to go in and read all these books, and there was his Mad Monkey Kung Fu and Dim Mak, and you know, I was fascinated in ninjutsu, loads of books on ninjutsu and stuff, and anyway, that's when I first learned about Dim Mak, because I found these Dim Mak books, and obviously watching some old VHS movies, you know, Ninja, what was it called, The Last Ninja or something like that, and the old master taught him the book, got this book out and showed him a diagram and all the points to strike, and when he taught this student, and I was like, oh wow, you know, so I kind of got sucked into it then. What did I know? You know, the mystical and the magical world of Dim Mak, and anyway, that was the beginning of it. And then years later, obviously, you know, I matured in Kung Fu, and then I traveled to China several times to train, and yeah, they were talking about point striking there and so on. I came across this guy. So what I did, there was a guy called Earl Montague, if you've heard of him, Tai Chi guy, and he used to do teach Dim Mak as well. Right. I was also interested in Chinese medicine. Enrolled in the School of York, TCM, School of Chinese Medicine, to study acupuncture and Chinese medicine herbal side as well. But funds were limited at the time, and I dropped out quite quickly. So, you know, I prepared some textbooks. Look, I've got. So if you're interested in Dim Mak, this is a good book to find the foundations of Chinese medicine. And let's have a look. So
you're going to pull all them apart, are you?
No. You got the Encyclopedia of Dim Mak here by Earl Montague, and it's a huge book.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. Where have I heard of him before?
So, look, you've got a practical guide to acupoints as well. Yeah, really good. Anyway, you're going to say I'm a Dim Mak master now or something, but
people who've trained a lot less and read a fewer books have called themselves more.
Here it is in black and white. I think it exists. Master Yao has said it exists, and in fact, he did a Dim Mak thing with us not so long ago, in the last 10 years, on one of the Guardian trainings, and he we sat down in the meeting room and he gave us a diagram and talked through the points and whatever. But
what exists? What do you mean by it exists?
So, in related to the Chinese medicine points,
right?
Now, because I'm a Westerner and I have a Western mindset, what I did is cross-reference. I studied it.
Yeah.
You can get so caught up in the stuff, and then I kind of had to abandon it. But what I did narrow it down to is, because I'm not into any mythical stuff really, and a lot of it you don't know actually works because you never tried it, So, but what I did do is I wrote a paper on it, So if I ever die, this is the thing to find. And, but these are my concise acupoints.
Well, you never know. Someone just might do some Dim Mak on you one day, and then you'll end up with measles or something. It's not a lot, It's just 2 pages, and I just listed them, in which I think are the most important and obvious ones that relate to Western medicine, so they can be cross-referenced to, like stomach 9, for example, which is in the neck, which relates into Western medicine as the vagus nerve, or the carotid sinus, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's no. They kind of exist. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
but when you say I think Dim Mak exists, so the connotation, Rash, is that it's all mystical and it's all like bam, drop dead 5 footsteps later. But what
or 2 weeks?
Okay,
or 2 weeks.
So I'm gonna I'll conclude on that. But all this stuff exists in relation to Chinese medicine, because you're getting treated with those points as well through acupressure and acupuncture.
Right.
Okay. But these are the obvious ones, and people kind of start blurting, stomach 4, triple warmer 23, and governing vessel 26. And it just all sounds impressive, but we're just talking about, I'm just someone who knows those things, and I'm talking about it. And you don't, so you'll be superly impressed by it. But you've got things like triple warmer, and all it is like in Western medicine, you're pressing a brachial plexus, which is a bundle of nerves, or where 3 points cross one in the Chinese meridian thing. But it's just a bundle of nerves, really.
Yeah.
So it can be.
Yeah, that's me. Sometimes I'm a bundle of nerves. Sometimes. Because I'm teaching people to drive. What do you expect?
Yeah, that's what my list is basically. Okay, what I think are the fundamental ones that work straight away, and I've tried a couple out, and they do. They kind of TKO your your opponent or partner that you've tried. I had someone who didn't believe it. I said, "Oh, you don't mind me trying it on you then?" So I had a go, and he was out, kind of pretty much. But
how much of that is based on compliance, though? Just stand there. I'm going to hit you here.
Yes and no. So, when you do, you press here, you step here, you brush this, and then you do that. It's all kind of a bit contrived and a bit.
Yeah, it's ain't going to happen.
Never going to work.
In a real moving world, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So that's my conclusion. To conclude on it, it exists. To really know it, because if you apply the 5 elements and time of the day when your body or your certain organs are active, and
wouldn't you have to know their birthday though, Rash?
Well, I don't know. Some people talk about that, but what I'm trying to say is that if you would really have to know it well. Look at your watch and say, "Oh, I need to hit him in here, spleen 16."
Yeah. Wait for him to come out the shops.
And then you're looking at some delayed, look, those ones I've listed on there, they're like immediate. So, I shouldn't really talk about this in a disclaimer. Don't try this at home. One is pericardium. There's a point here. It's hitting the pericardium, but it's nothing more than a cardiac thump.
Yeah.
Which effectively would stop the heart. Okay, so that's an immediate example of dim mak.
But this is the argument that I think non-believers have, is that okay, it's going to stop the heart, but has anybody ever stopped the heart?
Exactly. So you're going to ask me. I know all this stuff. I studied all this stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it that the ones I've listed, I think that work.
Yeah.
And it's, it's a concise list. So forget.
So when people claim to be dim mak masters and they say, well, this will do this and this will do that, this will stop the heart and it will kill you, the first thing you're going to say is, well, how many people you killed?
Yeah.
But
that's my point.
They're never going to do it. Why don't you just thump them in the face? Why don't you just punch them in the throat? Why don't you just hit them with a knuckle?
Well,
it's going to hurt just the same.
I got no problem with other people teaching it as a subject of interest. If people are interested in it, that's fair enough. Go to it. But as a martial artist, as a who wants to be able to fight and look after themselves, first and foremost, learn how to use this.
Yeah.
And
fist. Yeah.
The dim mak stuff is seldom going to work later on.
It's a fun history lesson.
Yes, but also you can tag it into Kung Fu and Lau Gar, and what you do is it just makes it sound fancy. Okay, so when you're doing a certain wrist lock, you're saying, "Oh, right, I'm grabbing a heart point here, I'm grabbing this point," and you just glorify it a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's still a wrist lock.
Exactly.
It's still a structure.
Exactly. I'm right with you on that. And this is what really pisses me off when people are teaching it, and they are trying to impress people by saying, "Yeah, this is heart number, whatever, and liver number," and you're going, "What are you talking about?"
There's
just
nothing
give
wrong
them
with
a
that.
thumb.
It's up to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with it, providing they're not trying to prove something that they're not capable of, and it does annoy me.
Yeah. So to conclude, I think you need to, use your bare fist, block, cover, counter. That's your bread and butter self-defense. Yeah. If you think, and you haven't done that training, you can add it on. I can add it on, but if you haven't done the fundamental punching and striking and cover, blocking and countering and stuff like that, and you were just gone to a dim mak thing and you think, yeah, I can kill someone, then you're deluded. Yeah. The other thing I hate, and I don't believe it in it, and I'm going to make a statement, is no touch knockout is bullshit. Okay?
You didn't have to tell us that.
Yeah. So if you believe in it, if you're someone out there that's listening to this and you believe in it, you're deluded.
Absolutely deluded.
And I'll put £1,000 of my money up.
I'll put £10,000 of my money up, which I haven't got, but I'll save it and give it to them if they can knock me out without touching me.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. But I'm going to also say on that proviso, they got to pay me £1,000 if it doesn't work.
Yeah, and they can't use rubber bullets.
But so I came across George Dillman as well. And,
I was going to mention him just then. If you've got a book by George Dillman,
I shouldn't mention names and rubbish people and that stuff. And
well, you won't be the first.
George Dillman has been exposed on American news when he had a reporter go to him and say, can you knock me out? And he was like, yeah, sure. He tried, he failed, and he turned around to the reporter and said, some people are susceptible and some people aren't. You just must be one of them.
Yeah, maybe your tongue was touching the top of your mouth or something.
That's what he said. In fact, that's what he said,
Yeah.
But back then, I was interested in it, and I bought the book and the video.
Yeah.
And I took the video and showed it to Mastiao. I showed it to John, and John showed it to Mastiao, and his comment was, no, it's bad. He said the guys don't know what they're doing and they're dangerous. And this is the other problem with people who do the DIMMAC courses like Dillman and stuff. And there's a couple of Bowman or someone. They're doing seminars and they're getting people in that they've never seen before, may not have any responsibility or safety, and they're teaching them. They don't know that individual.
They have no idea. Yeah.
So he might go off and hit someone in stomach 9, and someone who might suffer from high blood pressure or have any other kind of, who might already be heading towards a stroke.
Absolutely.
They hit him in there.
That's right, and that's another thing when I see people just hitting people hard just to prove a point. I cannot understand that. I'll tell you a story, Rash. James knows this story. My wife used to do jiu-jitsu
right.
A long time ago, before it was kind of credible, really. And she was in a class, and the instructor decided to get a volunteer to do a choke on them to knock them unconscious. And he chose this young kid, and he had him around the neck, choking him. And of course, the kid decided against it and started struggling, wet himself and everything. Unconscious, no. Eyes bleeding, yeah, right? Major issue, major problem. Guy's just trying to prove a point that he can put someone out, and he couldn't, right? A 14-year-old kid. Tell you what, that club closed faster than you could say, I'm Jack the Ripper. That was it.
Yeah.
And there was a policewoman in there as well. She couldn't say anything because, she'd be in trouble. Yeah. It was a ridiculous situation. And that's what it was like in the 80s, right? People trying to prove that they could do things that they had no knowledge of. And it's happening today.
So, it
continues to happen.
That's the duty of care. You've got to have teaching that stuff. And I wouldn't teach it to... someone would have to be training with me a long time. I'd have to know their personality, and before I shared any of that stuff with them.
Stuff like that. Is it any more dangerous than teaching someone, Butte Si Ping Choi, saying, right, if you hit someone in the eyes with a spear hand, whatever, it's going to hurt. I don't need to prove that if I smack you at the side of the neck in the carotid artery, that you're going to, get into trouble. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to know DIMMAC. Or like you mentioned with the heart trauma, Rash, if you're going to whack someone that hard, something's going to happen, So what's the big mysticism about it? I understand its relation to Chinese medicine. I think we've got to respect that.
Because it's a selling point, that's why.
Right, it is a selling point. But,
if people are interested in it, go on.
No, fine, that's great.
But, just from my point of view, in my opinion, if you want to be able to look after yourself on the street, hit some pads, do some sparring, have some power, have some timing, have some movement, that stuff first, and then you can add it on later. And something you mentioned there, Steve, that story you just told, and bringing it back to jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu or grappling, something that they don't acknowledge really, because we're choking each other out all the bloody time. And when you're advanced and against, you're rolling with advanced people, and rolling is sparring on the ground. Someone might take you back, and you might be in a rear naked choke. And a good example is my friend Paul that I mentioned. Paul Wood is his surname. So if anyone wonders, I used to take his back and get in a choke position, and I was putting this thing on. It was tight as hell. He was going red, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, it's all right. I'm okay." And I kind of let go, and I look at him, and his eyes were bloodshot, and he says, "Well, you only shut off one side. You didn't shut the other side." And so he was a fantastic partner because he forced me to refine my game on finishing chokes and all sorts of techniques, because he would hold off to the last minute. He knew all the little counters and adjustments to make it really hard to finish. And obviously we all learn that. If you're competing, you don't want to tap, you don't want to give in, you don't want to lose. You want to start getting in, making space, ease it off, get out of it, and then reversal, and so on. But he really did help me tighten my game up, especially for competition stuff. So there's a danger in James. Question for you: do you know the difference between a blood choke and an air choke?
Yeah, I mean, a blood choke is cutting off the blood to your brain, An air choke is cutting off the air to your brain, so you can't breathe.
Perfect. What do you think's more dangerous? And have you had any?
I would say probably a blood choke. If the blood doesn't get to your brain, you're going to be screwed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So with a blood choke, it comes on really fast, and you get a long dark tunnel.
Yeah. Which is why when you smack someone around the neck, that's why they drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen that in Austin Powers.
To stop
judo.
Yeah. So then, when you do an airway choke, it's actually horrible.
Yeah,
it's really horrible because you can feel, and you make all sorts of sounds.
Yeah, I don't need Dim Mac to know that I can knock someone out when I slap them around the neck. And a story when I was about 16 years old, I was in the Merchant Navy, and again, James knows this. I started getting involved with this guy during the war. Yeah. I got involved with this guy who really wanted to learn martial arts, and I was up on the deck with him, messing about in the dark, and I did a spinning kick, kicked him straight in the throat. I thought I was going to have to throw him over the side.
No wonder you like playing Hitman.
Because he was, like you say, like that, kicked him straight in the throat with a spinning kick. He was about 40 years old. I was about 16. I went, and we were just sparring. And it was went, and he just went straight on his knees.
That's a good spinning kick, though, wasn't it?
I had no, it was a good spinning kick. I used to do great spinning kicks when I was 16. I used to have a party trick to knock cigarettes out of people's mouths. I used to bet them I could knock a cigarette out their mouth without hurting them, and that's what I used to do. That was what my party trick in the park, kicking cigarettes out of people's mouths. Yeah. So, but that was me when I was, thin, young.
What I was going back to in the jiu-jitsu thing, in practice every week, 3 or 4 times a week, I'm rolling with people, and we're doing this stuff all the time. And you know what? I don't think our fine tubes in our neck are designed for it.
No, they're not.
Obviously, well, it's not, is it? So, but I don't think the evidence is there yet. But in time, I think if people trace back to why someone died, or they got fur in of arteries or whatever, or compression, or this is no more narrower than it was, and they've had a stroke or a heart attack or some blood clot or something in the future.
Yeah.
That'll be like, when the American football thing and
football, same with American football, same with boxing.
Yeah, boxing. It'll come into medical knowledge. And it'll be. I think
massive restrictions.
Me as a coach, and when I coach my students, I just say to them, look, work it in, but just tap early.
But this is that's one of the things that I really hate about these people that profess to, these special secrets. All they're doing is getting students that belong to someone else, get them to stand there, use them as cannon fodder, and then just go, oh, this will work. Liver number whatever, and then they go bang and hit them hard, and they go, ugh, and you know what? He gets up and he goes, oh, that was great because he hit me really hard, so he must be good. And then most teachers are going, well, I'm going to hit you to a certain, amount of energy, and then you're going to feel it here, or you're going to feel it in the back, or you're going to feel whatever, and you're trying to restrain yourself as best you can. If you want to hit someone hard, hit a bag, know that you can knock that person. And then, but no, you also can protect that person,
Just let them get on with it. Like I say, we can't protect, we can't control what other people do.
No.
We can just ensure the safety of our own students. And, there's loads of kickboxers and the way they train, and, they do, even in MMA, they do all sorts of
stupid
stuff
things.
It's not good for your health.
No.
We can't control it. You just got to let people get on with what they do.
Yeah,
I got no problem to just let them get on with it.
Do you think, Rash, like the way like the grappling crowd train, like you're going for that submission, you're going for that choke, feels a bit more sort of relevant to them as a martial art, as opposed to the way we in Kung Fu will train. We'll say, we'll just, might hit some pads, do some line work, spear, hand and punch and whatnot. And whereas the onus is on us to sort of, suggest, it would work. If I poke you in the eye, that's going to work. But the grapplers, they will sort of train and go, well, I know this works, like that, because you've been trained. So it feels, to them, it's certainly more relevant as a martial art. And I guess another add-on to that point is, would you consider, when we're looking at the grappling arts, in your opinion, as a seasoned martial artist, when you look at a style like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is it a style of martial arts or is it a training method of martial arts?
Again, it's the answer is both. It is a style. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is formulated by the Gracies, and it is a particular style and a way of doing things that they specialized in and honed in and decided to teach. And one thing that annoys them is that when they set out teaching it, their intent was self-defense. It wasn't for sport. And how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu changed is that the majority now, 70, 80, 90% of people do it for sport, and they've lost the self-defense element.
But that was the
Gracies about. You could say Lau's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say to Rash.
Well, good. There you go. So that's what's happened with it.
Right.
And the other thing is, you mentioned the good thing about when you learn jiu-jitsu, it's live training straight away.
Right. Yeah, like rolling around. So it seems relevant straight away.
Yeah, you learn the technique. You learn 1 or 2, 3, 4 techniques a week, and then you'll be sparring. And you'll be getting in there, and it's a test all the time. So, and for us older ones, it's tough. You have to make sure you warm up properly.
So my question earlier to you was, and maybe on the last one, doesn't syllabus get in the way of us training the art? Like, so if you're going to a jiu-jitsu club, and you're straight away given a technique and you're rolling on the mats, and you're great, whereas you go to a kung fu club, we all know the process by which you have to train kung fu. We all know it. Your stance is damn important. The basics. But before you can start fighting, you've got to learn the basics.
Yeah, but you can't just walk into the class and say, okay, this is a punch to the face, smack, and then
you can't. I'm not saying do that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
But that's what differentiates between grappling and striking arts is that if you're going to poke people in the eye, I think pretty much you're going to lose your student. If you're going to punch them straight in the nose when they come, you're going to lose your student.
But you
can get on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a definite market value because of that. But at the end of the day, it's down to what people's preference is and sizes as well.
I mean, kung fu is really difficult in the sense you could. Well, actually, the stand-up element in the sticking element of it, you can practice.
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu, if you like, to some degree.
But it takes skill to build it, though. That's the trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes a long skill to build it.
Yeah.
So that's.
But going back to like the Lau Guardian syllabus, right? So number 1 hand block could have 10 different applications. Just say 10. It could be 100, but let's just say 10. And so initially, it was designed for a redirection. It's called a block, but it's not a block. It's a redirection. Yeah.
Yeah. Parry.
And I said to you, you can block with it, you can lock with it, you can throw with it, you can strike with it. Okay. But to my white sash, I'd only show him or teach him the redirection, the block. Yeah. And and this is the other problem with people in, I'm not just saying in our style, in any style. And it's the fault of the instructor as well. Well, not say fault.
Sometimes it's the way they were taught.
So it's how instructors, in sometimes, even me, I'm guilty of it. Okay, so I'll use myself as an example. I'm so keen to show what I know and show the 10 different applications to my students that they can become overwhelmed with, and then they want to practice, out of the 10 I've showed them, they want to practice the fanciest one, but that may not be the most applicable one. Okay, and the most applicable one is the redirection. And they'll never go on that journey of competency, which I talked about earlier. Yeah. Because you're trying to do all these things, trying to juggle all these balls, all these things. And so I'm a firm believer in just teaching, you know, everything, and every instructor will have a different interpretation of what it's used for as well. But I think there's an obvious, what it is actually designed for, primary, and it's the, you know, primary, secondary, and then anything else application. So it's always the primary application. Now, that's what I think is important for people and instructors to teach. So everyone gets competency in the primary to start with, and then they can add on later on. And also they can discover, the students can, you can prompt the students, they say, well, okay, what else can you use that for? And let them experiment and get them thinking for themselves.
I can totally understand where you're coming from in wanting to teach them one thing at a time and so on. But when I teach, I tend to teach from a student's point of view. So it's kind of different for me. And obviously, as you say, different for everyone. So rather than teach them what I think they should know, I teach them what I think they can use. So it totally depends on how the person, what the build is, and so on. Because if you've got a big guy training and a young girl training, and you say to the girl, this is going to be a block, she's going to look at you and say, how stupid is that? Because there's no way she's going to be able to protect herself from that person. So I'm looking at it from her point of view rather than my point of view. And that's where teachers differ, I guess.
I get it. I respect and understand that.
Yeah.
I disagree with you.
No, that's fine. That's what we're here for.
Well, you know, primary, because what I'm trying to say is, you've got to have an idea, a clear idea in your mind, and when you perform the set, start to finish, and you're going through the movements, you've got to have a clear idea of what you're doing, not several ideas.
No. I didn't say I would give her several ideas. I said I would give her an idea that works for her. And that's why I approach it like that. So I might then teach someone else what works for them, which might be different. So teaching them individually, when they get together, that is when they start to learn together. They don't need me anymore, because now one person is doing it as a block, the next person is doing it as a release, and so on. And then they go, oh, this is a block. And then the other guy goes, oh, I do it like this. And they go, wow. And so that is what creates that atmosphere.
This is fine. I agree and I respect that. Okay. But what I'm trying to get across is that, you know, it comes back to reality. It's got, the thing was designed a certain way, you know, and it's got a principal primary application, and that has got to go at the top of the list. And when they perform the set and they're going through the movements, each move at a time, it's got to be that principal movement that they're reinforcing, because then it'll look martial. It'll look how it's supposed to look. It's not just floating hands in the air.
So who like, just to pick up on your point, you said it's got a principal, application. Who says it's a principal application? That's my question. I guess what I'm getting at is, even though in the syllabus we can say, all right, we'll use number one, because obviously in the syllabus, as pertains, the principal application, as you say, is a redirection, parry, whatever, strike. But when we're looking at the individual technique and we're teaching it from an instructor's point of view, imparting knowledge, who am I as an instructor to say that the principal application of that is a redirection? Because it might not be. The principal application could be a release, it could be a throw, could be a lock.
But Rash is coming from the syllabus, I think, where you look at the syllabus and it says that.
Yeah, that's why I said in the syllabus it is, you know, like Rash says, it's a redirection.
That's the principal example of
in
what
the syllabus.
In the syllabus and that's why I agree with Rash to that degree. But of course, when you come, as you said, when you come to
what I'm trying to say is people overthink stuff.
Yeah.
They contrive it and then they go off.
Yeah.
And they can't do, you know, like what can I use as an example? Well, this out of Farkune, you know, people say, oh, it's coming off something, or you're lifting and then coming to the throat. But in its purest form, it's a strike to the throat, direct line. It's got, you know, but otherwise.
But only if you're striking, because if someone's grabbed your wrist, you may need to do something in order to take that strike.
No, Steve, stop talking. Okay, you got it. What I'm trying, you see, you're
saying
guilty.
there's a basic,
you're guilty of fluffing your students' thoughts.
I'm guilty.
They need to go from A to B first, and they need to become competent A to B.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying, and this is a good argument. I understand what you're saying. But you say they have got to go from, who's they? Because they are a completely different person. And when you're teaching them one thing, they cannot use it. They may not be able to use it. What you're doing is trying to give them the thing that you believe they can use.
I agree and understand. So you adapt.
So I'm approaching it from the student's point of view, which is what I've always done, which is, I mean, I'm a driving instructor, right? So I go out and I teach people to drive, but I get in the car with them, and some of them can just drive brilliantly, and then they're frigging useless at certain rules. So I've got to approach them from how they're driving and then encourage them to then come back to those rules in order for them to get better at driving. So it's just my nature. That's just the way I teach.
I would, the same principle, I would teach my student and how to adapt that same primary principle so they can use it. But I wouldn't give them the secondary or beyond.
No, but I've never said I'm going to give them two. I've never seen. In the argument, in our conversation, I've never said I'm going to give them two examples. What I said is I'm going to approach it from one way and give one person a use, but I may give another person a different use simply because of the fact that he's a different type of person and may use it in a different way because of his size and so on, and or her size if she's a smaller person. Now, when they get together in the class, they may use it differently and therefore teach each other. And that's what creates this understanding. That's what, it's a thirst for knowledge. They go, I've done that, but he's done it that way. Now I know too, but I never taught it them. Do you see what I mean? I didn't teach them, but they only learn it because they can, not because I forced them to. And that's just, you know, me as a teacher. So
well, that's fair enough. That's fine.
I've always been a teacher.
You know, obviously, that's my way of doing it.
I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I do understand where you're coming from. I just, you know, I'm giving you an alternative because that's.
So when they learn a set start to finish, they will know all the principle movements, and then they'll practice the application principally, and then they go on a journey of competency, scoring out of 1 to 10. Hopefully get into an 8 or a 9, and then when you put that back into the set, it looks martial. No,
I understand that.
And in time, they can, as they go through the grades and they mature in their martial understanding, they can start to experiment within the sets. And you know, I will set, rather than me just giving me answers all the time, because I know I've done it. I'll let them find out or experiment, and then I'll show them, well, you could do it this way, or you could do it that way, and then I'll add in the things. And they'll build it over time, and that's the other thing, the time between the gradings. You know, there's no rush.
That's
there's
right.
There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to get competent, because people are rushing.
See that space on the wall?
Yeah.
One day I'll get a black. One day.
Oh right, okay. All right, I didn't realise.
Maybe. But you know,
maybe.
You know, I totally understand what you're saying and so on, but you know, I love argument, right? I love to create argument within the class, discussion. I love discussion in the class. You know, when you're teaching in a class, can you imagine me teaching a religious class? I knew someone who was a total atheist but taught religion. Okay, and their argument is, okay, what's this, what's that, the Bible this, the Bible that, whatever, and then they discuss it, and they get people to discuss it, and they give both sides of the argument, the atheist argument, the religious argument, whatever. What I'm doing in teaching this, a set, as an example, is I might teach someone that can use that set in a specific way, and therefore their principles or their principal movements will have a different take for this person. So this person will learn a set of movements which may have different meanings or different uses. They're the same movements, but he's doing them for one reason and he's doing them for another. So when you see them do the sets, they actually look different. But you know what? They both look martial because they're doing them for a reason. The most important thing is they're doing them for a reason. Now, when they get together, they're able to expand on their knowledge without me. And I am only a third party now, because now the school or the group of people are so involved in finding out other people's takes.
They don't need
practice
you anymore.
them and trying them. They don't need me anymore, which is why they call me Marty McFly. Because I've taught them to learn. I've taught them to think for themselves. And you know what? Backfires on you. Because they go, who are you? Nah, I'm only joking. No, they learn. They learn. I like people to learn. It's my passion. Teaching has always been my passion. And so I love to, I mean, I can only give people my opinion, but I give my opinion to people on what I see them doing. Do you know what I mean? Rather than, I don't say to them, oh, you're doing that wrong. I'll say, why are you doing it that way? And they'll give me a reason why they're doing it. And if they're doing it for a reason, well, that's great. And I can give you another reason, and so on. So, but that's just me. But I just enjoy
anyway, this stuff
that kind of approach.
Yeah, this stuff takes a long time to get good at it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Just to get, useful at it. And I could only really pick a handful of people that I think, it will come out. Their Lau Gar would come out in a fight, So
yeah. No, I totally understand. I totally understand. And no one ever knows until it happens, because some people can be absolutely amazing at martial arts and it doesn't work for them. And then other people can be bloody useless, and because they've got the attitude, they'll survive. So it isn't necessarily about their style. It's not necessarily about their art, not necessarily about what they do in the fight. It's actually what they, how they respond. Sometimes. And sometimes they don't have to respond, they just have to say something and the other guy craps themselves, and that's the way it can be as well.
Can I insert a disclaimer here?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Basically,
shall we write it on the screen?
Last time I kind of said that Mastiao and John, their Master Russell, their opinion of a black sash, when they get to black sash, they're starting out, and I fully respect that, I fully understand that, and I'm fully with that as well. I just, it was my opinion that I was, and the way I was doing things, it's my approach to it. Wanting to clarify how I teach and how I make people do the applications as they go. And there's nothing against it, because when my students come to do black sash, it will be a pleasure for Mastiao and John to watch, because they will look at someone and go, oh, they look quite good, and they look like they know what they're doing, and they look like they could use it. Which is brilliant, so now also I could have offended people, because they're going to be, there might be some Lau Gar people out there, or coloured belts in any style for it, that matter, and they could be, oh, I know I've been training 7 years or 10 years or 15 years, 20 years, okay, but I don't know what this set is for. I've never been taught, and then they're going to go, well, am I calling them crap because they don't know? I'm not saying that, and it doesn't matter. But what they've got now, once they, my point was, the point of learning the set is learning, not just for the belt, is to understand it and understand the applications, what we're getting at, and then eventually you can use it for real, as it was designed to be used. And if you're in a position and you find you don't know what things are for, you've got a couple of options. And number one, you can go and hide and quit. Don't do that, okay? But you can, or number one, you can stay as you are, okay, and just keep practicing. 2, go and seek the knowledge. So ask your instructor, okay. Now this is another problem. Your instructor might not have the information, and you know, my advice to people out there: don't be a dick. Don't go to your instructor and say, "Oh yeah, you don't know what it's for." Saw this guy on a podcast and he said, "Oh, if you don't know your stuff, you don't know what it's for, you're crap," you know.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay, but you kind of you know, ask your instructor, and if you can't, if your instructor hasn't got the answers, then my next advice would be to look into it yourself.
Yeah.
Try and work out what it's for.
Yeah.
Get a partner and say, "Oh, just punch at me and let me try this move out on you. Let me try this on you." Or how does that work? Or, and then you'll make mistakes and you'll find a better way. And that is a perfect journey to start, you know.
But the first thing, sorry,
also,
go on.
Let me finish it. And then option 3, if you are a black sash and or a black belt in Kung Fu, karate, whatever style, travel and find the knowledge. Yeah, go and if you're a black sash in our style, I believe well, not I believe, I know there's a class on a Thursday that's been going for years. I used to go to it in the 90s and stuff regularly, taught by Master Russell, and Master Yao is there most weeks, and that is open to all black sashes in the UK. So a little bit of a promotion there. People can go there and go through their syllabus, and they can also approach Master Russell and ask the questions. Yeah. Alternatively, find someone else in their area, or me, or some of my colleagues. You know, yourself a bit far to go.
They got to come. Yeah, they got a bit of a way to go to me.
Okay, so you know, there's Andrew Nation, my colleague, and Pete Hornby. You know, he's been training a lifetime.
People all over the country they can learn from.
People all over the country.
Yeah,
you know, I get a lot of people don't know, but I get messages and I get people that travel from other areas to come because they haven't got the instruction, so they book privates with me.
Yeah.
So you can find it. What I'm trying to say is put people, if you don't know, do something about it and put people on the path to finding a way to get the knowledge and then practice. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't be.
That's what this is about. This is about proliferating knowledge.
Yeah, I think the first thing you've got to do, Rash, is you don't apologize for insulting people or upsetting people. If they're upset, it's because they understand that you're telling the truth. If you're speaking the truth and giving your own honest opinion, you have a right to do that, and therefore you have a right to offend. Okay, and that's called free speech. So if you're not naming anybody, and therefore they will consider themselves to be in one category or another. Yeah. So it's not you that's doing it. It's you're enlightening people to say, wait a minute, maybe I don't know this, maybe I don't know that. You're telling the truth. Learn what it's for. And if people don't know what it is for, they're going, you know what? I don't know what it's for. Rash is right. We're going to go. I'm going to go find out.
What we do a lot of is forcing people to hold the mirror up against themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a really good thing in the martial arts, in what we do in Lau Guardian. If you're forced to look back on yourself and say, well, what am I doing? What, you know, do I know this? Yeah. Do I not know this? That can only be a good thing, because it's going to, you know, encourage you to seek the knowledge. Yeah.
That's my
find
point.
Out.
You know, find out and just put people on the path.
Yeah. It's not the,
we're going back to what we said in the first podcast. There's people that train and they're not that into it. They're not that serious about it. They're not going to go to that extent to go and learn. And that's fine as well. Yeah, that's completely acceptable.
And you know,
and if you want to do it for the wushu element or the show element, that's fine as well.
Absolutely.
That's not my way.
That's right, and it's not my way, which is why we say, you know, we come from this, you know, from this position and give our opinion. People don't have to accept our opinion, and people don't have to agree with us.
Yeah.
We're not. It doesn't matter, and we totally respect that. But the other thing is, you've got to think about when you talk about instructors is some of them just did not have the opportunity to learn as other people did. They're doing their damn best to learn, and they're doing what they can to give people knowledge. Now, they're taking them certain distance on that journey. Maybe they can't take them any further, but they can guide them on that journey as best they can. But when they're guiding people, they're learning themselves. So it's a benefit to them. And of course, the more people they guide on that journey, the more knowledge they have, because everyone approaches the journey differently.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll never disrespect any instructors that only know a certain amount of information. We are lucky in the sense that we have been there a long time, so we've gained something. But we could have been in a situation in any part of the country where, you know what, we never ever learned anything or enough to be able to discuss it. So it is about learning. When you teach, you learn 10 times faster than when you're just training. And so because people teach for a long period of time, you're going to learn an awful lot. And if people want to listen to us and take our ideas and opinions, then that's absolutely fine. And if they disagree and they can show us something or teach us something, that's good too, because that helps us. Yeah, so we never ever take away from the fact that people know stuff or they don't know it, but they're always enthusiasts.
You know how sensitive people are, and they interpret things a certain way. So I just
that's their problem. I'm sorry, but that's no problem. But unfortunately, that's their problem. And some people think they're better than they are, and some people are actually better than they are. That they think they are.
There's a statement that I use when I teach called unconscious incompetence, because I like the word competence. But ideally, you think about that, unconscious incompetence. Yeah. But ideally,
you don't know you're incompetent.
Yeah. Ideally, you want conscious competence, don't you?
Yeah.
So that's what you're aiming for. But that's a tip for anyone working out. Think about
it. That's great.
And going back to, you're just putting people on the path, really.
Everyone's on a journey.
It's not a be end and end all either. This is the other thing. And I could give right. So I use myself as an example. I've been training over 35 years, and in the last 25 years or 30 years, since I could drive, basically, I pretty much attended everything I could attend. Okay. I used to go. Master Russell, I keep calling him John, but Master Russell used to come to Bristol, and I used to train with him once a month. He used to come to Bristol once a month, and then so he'd come 1 week. 2 weeks later, I would drive to Birmingham and train in Birmingham, and then 2 weeks later, he's back in Bristol, and 2 weeks later. So every 2 weeks, I saw Master Russell, and once a month, I saw Master Russell and Master Yao. And again, since I could drive, I attended summer course, all the Black Sash courses, you name it, weapons, workshops, Guardian trainings. I've kind of attended everything. And what you find is, every time you go, you get a little bit of this, a little bit of information here, a little bit of information there, lots of patches of information. Sometimes you've heard it before, and then you get a little bit of something, and it's worth the journey just for that. And that's what people, I think, miss when they don't make the effort to travel and train. So
some people just don't have the option either.
My advice is to go and seek the knowledge. Get off your butt and do it. And that's what I've done, and maybe that's why I understand it.
Yeah, people just don't have the option sometimes. But of course, with media and so on, and podcasts and videos and questions, people send in information. We have people all the time sending questions to us, because I say, we talk about the syllabus, and I tell them how I would do it, and then they go, I've never tried that before. What do you mean? So we'll send them like a little video on the like off my phone. I'll go in the garden with a cup of tea. I don't dress up. I don't pretend. I don't stuck my sash on and my uniform on. I just go in there with my cup of tea and my t-shirt, and I just go, oh, this is what I mean. And they go, excellent. That's what I needed to know. I've never done it that way before.
The other important point is,
it's free.
You could go and what? You could go and travel and train directly under Master Yao, and you could have the best instructor in the world, but it also takes a good student. And for me, you have to do the work. There's no shortcuts. You can't, you just got to do the training. Nobody can do the training for you. That's the other tip. You have to go on the process of practice.
Yeah,
and
I went
doing
to
it over again and again and again.
Yeah,
and that's why.
Yeah,
it's hard, you know. Very few people understand.
Yeah. I've had some really good students, and I had one student who I went on holiday. Sorry,
what?
Yeah, I went on a holiday to to Florida, and a guy flew from Missouri 1,000 miles to come and train with me in Florida for 2 days, right? And that's all he wanted to do. And so I was on holiday. My wife didn't like it. My kids didn't like it. Hell, they had a swimming pool. It's okay. And I was in the air-conditioned hallway in a house in Florida. We hired a house, and yeah, I taught him for that period of time. Then he flew back, and I've always flown over from England to Missouri to teach him whenever he wanted to, and I've always done the gradings by video for him, and then took him to Master Yao and said, you know, how does he, and it's graded him, and so on, because it's the only way you can do it when you're in a situation like that. But, you know, you get students that are so dedicated, and then, you know, that's the way it is. And look at James, he's stuck with me. So it's like...
James, last time you mentioned something about degree grades.
Yeah. So, like, basically, you know, how relevant, at what point do you think, Rash, that a degree grade sort of becomes null and void because of your accumulated experience? I mean, look at, and the reason I ask this is because I wanted to get your opinion on it. Steve, as you know, is a 5th degree. 25 years ago, he just, you know, stopped doing it. And I think we've discussed that. Why.
I didn't stop training. I just stopped taking gradings.
Stopped taking the grades. And, and I know yourself now, you're a 6th degree. And I was just wondering, what's your take on doing the degree grades?
Well, look, this is a bugbear of mine and my opinion, okay? You know, there's set minimum times between the degree grades, and obviously, for some reason, they've shrunk. In olden times, what Steve will tell you, it was years before you progress from degree to degree, and I'm talking 4 or 5 years a time.
The amount of years, if you're taking a 3rd degree, it would be 3 years, a 4th degree would be 4 years, and so on.
Yeah, but I mean, even back then, it was more. You'd usually go a longer period. I got 7 or 5 or 6 years between like a 3rd degree or something and a 4th or whatever. You know, it's just now people are kind of going by the book. You know, oh, it's a year to this and another 2 years to this, and so my point I'm going to make is that the time between the gradings, like the set that you do for that grading, you could learn in a week or a month pretty quickly. And then, you know, you got 2 years of practicing it. But that 2 years, let's just say 1st to 2nd, you know, 2 years. You got 2 years to practice that form. But that 2 years is not just for practicing that form, it's to practice everything you've ever learned.
Right.
Okay? That's my point. If you're a serious martial artist and you're into your style and you are credible in your style, then you'll practice everything. Yeah. And you know, the next grade you take, you could look at the same thing. You learn that set, you could learn it in a week or a month or whatever, depending on your ability, and then you've got to practice or, you know, correct it or whatever over a period of time. But those 3 years is still for the development of your kung fu as a whole, all of your kung fu, down to Gabun Salfar, Hanaki blocks, and so on. And you know, what annoys me a little bit is that people will take their 4th degree and then they say, well, I shouldn't say. Yeah, I'm going to get in trouble now.
You're not going to get in trouble, Rash. No one ever listens to us.
So they've forgotten their, you know, a couple of degrees ago set, their first sword set, or
why are you in trouble for that? They should be in trouble for that. Yeah.
Or Fei Long Si. And to me, that you haven't taught me any manners. Not into.
It's his room.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. That makes complete sense. Brilliant.
Thanks, Daniel, for breaking up the flow there. Cheers.
Yeah. Anyway, so you know,
go shoot.
That's one of my key things. I think anyone who trains, like I think 3rd degree, 3rd dan, that's a high level, you know. And beyond that, you know, you need to be worthy of your grade by displaying all your martial art. And again, I use myself as an example. If Master Yao was here and he said, Keeping Safar, Farkyun, Feilong Si, Chap Choi, Puji Ping Choi, whatever, I could do everything. I could do my hand and kick blocks. I could do my first sword set, the second sword set, the dual stick, the spear, the kwando, the cane. If I was put on the spot, I might not be happy with it. It might not be as polished or as nice as I like it, but I could do it. Yeah. So I think I'm worthy of my grade in that respect. Also, to answer your question, James, having got to 6th degree,
yeah,
you change the way you think, because I'm never going to be assessed again for anything. You know, I've learned the syllabus.
Yeah,
I've done it. You know, and you then realise this is a contradiction. Grades don't mean anything.
Right, right.
Okay. Yeah. It's a strange thing to say, but
but for the beginner who's listening, every grading is so important in the first instance.
Yes,
it's where we're talking about later grades where you get up those the status that you're at this time is something that you would be, you know, obviously to get to that point you've had to take all those other grades, so they were so valuable.
It does and it doesn't. That's the correct answer. Okay, it does at a certain time. But then when you get to a certain level, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, can you do? Yeah, if you're put on the spot, can you do it? And can you use it? And are you competent at it? And that's what it's about. That's what, to me, an ideal martial artist is about. You know?
Yeah.
And Master Yao is an example of that, because when he moves, you know, he doesn't practice all the time now.
No, of course he doesn't. He looks beautiful.
He's accurate.
Yeah.
And that's because he's done it at one time or another.
Yeah.
And put so much time into it. He's just spot on. And Master Russell's the same.
Except when he forgets it, but we won't talk about that.
You know.
But that was me talking, not you, Rash. I love him to death and that, but you know, there have been times.
Yeah.
But,
we all forget.
We all forget it.
And then. You know, going back to that point of what I was talking about in the sets earlier, and overthinking it or making it contrived. If you watch Master Yao do something, he'll do it like it's always been done in its simplest, purest form.
Yeah, absolutely.
He won't fluff it. He won't be doing the secondary or the third or fourth application.
He'll always have a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He'll be doing the primary. He'll hit you under the chin, bang you in the throat. That he won't go around the houses.
No,
you know what I'm saying? But people go on a course and they say, oh yeah, if someone punches it on this line and angle, you cut the punch and you go in. So then they're practicing that, but then
but yeah, I can see what you're saying, but of course people always approach it from a different perspective. You know,
it's that Chinese whisper thing. So they take it on, they go away and they practice this rounded strike. And then
when it comes off any usefulness, then I absolutely agree. You know,
so it becomes secondary. You see,
But the
primary, he just goes A to B. He says, "Why would you do that? Why are you doing this rounded punch in your set when you're performing your set?" Do you see what I'm trying to say?
No, I absolutely agree.
Fall into this thing. Oh, I went on a course and I learned this, and he did this lift and then in.
Yeah.
And then you know, when they do the set from then on, they're always doing that instead of that.
Yeah.
It's you're doing a secondary movement. It's not primary. Primary is there to there, and Master Yao will do it there to there. So
because he's demonstrating that specific, that's why. But
the message is do it the way he does it. Do it the way it was supposed to be done in its purest form. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't fluff it.
On a philosophical question, I mean, I've never had the privilege of training with Master Yao. If you're a teacher in the martial arts, Master Yao he's proliferated the style. Is Master Yao's job to develop independent martial artists who each and every one of them, whether I'm talking to Steve or you, Rash, have a different understanding, and yet you understand the same within the art? So when you say, Rash, do it like Master Yao does it, isn't that a bit like saying, you know, his word will always be the final word? Whereas couldn't Master Yao turn around and say, well, you know, if my grandfather was still alive, his word would be the final word, and so on. How far back do we have to go? Why could I not rely on Steve's word as my instructor, or your students rely on your word, and to trust you to give them the knowledge in all of its glory in the first place, rather than you saying, ask Master Yao.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think it's important to, you know, and I agree with you, Steve, as well. You can do it, you know, it's okay for other instructors to have their take on it, you know, but what I'm trying to the message I'm trying to get across is that just don't overcomplicate it.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from, Rash.
And that's it in black and white. And the other stuff is just additional, but you need a black and white.
But I think you've got to look at it. I think when you look at it, you've got to look at it as a time scale as well, because some people will exactly be capable of doing what you're talking about, and that is don't complicate it, just learn it. But there's going to come a time when you will start experimenting, you know.
Yeah, that's got to come with it.
And so people will teach it in that way because they experiment, and the only way they can experiment is with their students. So they've got to provide, but as long as it's correct, not necessarily primary, but as long as it's correct. And like we talked earlier about me, I might teach this person one thing and that person another, because it's the circumstances you might find them in, you know.
Yeah. You have to pick, what I'm trying to say is you have to pick one way for the set, and the best one way is the primary.
Yeah, well, I don't know what a primary is. That's the thing, you see.
Well, that's fine, you know, that's fine. But
the primary thing for me is the objective to make the thing work, and obviously that will rely on several different things. You know, we know we have a lock, a block, a strike, a hold, a throw, release. We know we have in a 12 movement set, we call it 13 movement set. In the first set, we can make 1,400,000 possibilities in an equation.
What I'm saying
is the primary there.
Yeah, early on, you know, you have to set a primary.
There you go. That's why I was getting you to go.
As you go through the grades, and as I teach application, when I first teach the set, I teach the primary. Once they've got the set, as they're going along, I get them to think for themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Add all the other options.
But that's what I meant about the time element.
Yeah, as they're going along, they are building this anyway.
Yeah.
You see? But they have to pick one way in the set. Because you need to have an idea about what you're doing. That's what I'm trying to say. A lot of people, and the best idea is the most common, you know, the common sense application, and what, you know, most direct, and that's how to define it, I think. Most direct and useful. But, you know, I'm not saying usually, but some people get caught up in, oh yeah, I'm trying to throw him. Well, why are you trying to throw him? It's this.
No, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. But I think it's a perception, But I think we're not clones, and we'll never be clones, and so.
Yeah, well, we don't want clones, but that's when, like I said, the way I teach is I teach the application, but then with the practice drills that we do, it allows them to practice variations. So they're not clones anyway. They're thinking. But you know, what I'm trying to say also is that not enough. Okay, so again, I'm going to get in trouble. Not enough people that I see.
You've been on here twice, and you keep on saying you're going to be in trouble. How many times are we in trouble?
Okay, look, when I watch a set, I see just people haven't got a clue, and they haven't got one way even, or they've got some of it, and they haven't got it in all of it, and you know,
absolutely,
it'll be frustrating to watch for someone who knows it, and we'll look at someone and go, well,
and then you might watch us.
Remember what I said about me when I graded?
You wouldn't have passed yourself.
I was good at looking good, but I didn't necessarily understand what I was doing.
But you might watch someone set, Rash, and they're doing something totally different to what you would do, because they've been taught by someone else, because they're not a clone. And I think it's not in the beginning, like you said, you've got to start from one point. To a certain degree, you've got to have a certain standard. But there is going to, you know, different instructors of certainly different levels of experience are going to give a totally different concept or perception of what that set is for, and therefore they'll teach it that way, and it becomes it doesn't change the set, It just changes what the movements are for, or how that person would use that set. I don't think you're ever going to be able to have a single most, a primary thing, except, as you say, at the very beginning, where everyone should start from the same song sheet, shall we say. Okay. But even then, a lot of people haven't had that opportunity of starting from the same song sheet. So therefore, they're always going to be different. And we have to celebrate the difference in people, as long as they understand what they're doing.
Okay, so guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Rash the final closing statement here, because we really must sort of wrap this up. And guys, I just want to say, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Rash. But if you'd like to finish off, Rash, and I promise Mr. Newbie won't interrupt you.
All right, okay.
I love an argument.
Packed it out with his stuff. I was going to say waffle then, but I better not. I'm joking. Steve.
No, it's been great. It's been really good.
Yeah. So, what can I say? One other thing we didn't mention is that there's all the components. It's not just the application. The components related to the application is the stance, the posture, the structure, as well as the technique. And they all need to be focused on as well. I think that's kind of quite lacking as well, when you see a lot of people, they haven't got the proper root or base or understanding of their weight and transition of movement. And then to generate the power, because then you need that softness, the relaxedness to generate that force. But then therefore comes the internal, as well. So that element ties in with it.
Well, Rash,
so you need to train all of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to conclude now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say.
I thought you just did.
No. So the point is, no touch knockout doesn't work.
In summary,
kind of assess. I think the tips I could give is look at your stuff, record yourself, how it feels as well. Assess it, grade it out of 1 to 10, and think, I could do better, get into a higher competency of each movement and delivering an 8 or a 9. I wouldn't even give myself a 9 most of the time. Quite hard, and and then so analyze, go and seek the knowledge if you haven't got access to the knowledge. And put it together and become a competent martial artist. There you go.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a great message. Thanks, Rash. We really like to extend our most sincere thanks for having you to come on our podcast. You are our first ever guest, and once again, man, it really means a lot. We really love the message. I love your style. Love the cut of your jib. How can people get in contact with you if they want to message you or whatnot?
Just drop me a message through Facebook. You can find me through Facebook.
Okay. And what's your site?
You can find all the information off Facebook. So Sifu Patel, just look me up on Facebook and
Sifu Patel. Just type Sifu Patel in, and you'll and get on your Facebook page.
Again, thanks to you guys both for having me on.
It's been great, and we want to see one of these promotional videos for this.
Yeah.
Takedowns and stuff. We love that, takedowns. We absolutely really enjoyed watching that, and we'd love to see more of that. And we'd like to see the whole of the BKFA get a little take on this idea.
Yeah.
Do not stop at the point where you've hit the guy. Finish the fight, and that is what you're going to be doing. That's what you're teaching.
As another sales thing and advice to my colleague, because if one of my colleagues came up and said, I've been doing this is worth a look at. That's kind of what I'm saying about the grappling. I think it's worth a look at and a recommendation to my colleagues to do the fundamental course, and people in the style, do the fundamentals course if you want it for.
We want to see you, push this and improve the way that an awful lot of people train. So that we hope that you can get something out promotional. We hope that, and we'll pass on any information that they need.
And I appreciate that. And we never spoke about my sensitivity in grappling and how that's helped me as well.
Well, do you know what then? You're going to have to come back at some point in the future, Rash. We're going to have to invite you back on, and we'll have a good old chat about that.
Yeah. Sticky hands works in manipulation of.
Absolutely. Right. We're going to have to go. It's been going on too long, but it's been fascinating. Thanks again to Rash. Thank you, Steve. Yeah. And we'll see you soon, guys. Take care. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye, Rash. See you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So, what do you reckon? Was that good or what?
I think it was really informative and good arguments.
Excellent arguments. That's what it's about. That's what you love. We all love a good old argument.
We can't agree. Someone's got to agree with Rash. Someone's got to agree with me at some point in time.
I thought
maybe one day.
Brilliant. He's really championing Lau Guard, and I just wish I'd asked him about sort of where he sees the style going in the future and whatnot. But I really think it's such a relevant avenue.
People need, I think in my time, people weren't so interested in it, but it's become very popular. And I'm not championing grappling. I don't like grappling. And as me and Rash agreed, it's not going to be great for the street on the floor, but getting people down and you getting up.
Yeah,
that is, in other words, finishing off the fight.
Yeah,
it's not about sweeping and throwing. It's about completing the sweep and the throw or whatever, and holding them down, getting them down, locking them down, breaking their bloody arm or whatever. Yeah. It's about finishing off in self-defense, and I think Rash has got a really good training schedule there, a really good training module that he can really apply to people in Laos, and I think everyone in Laos should take a look.
Yeah. I think he's very, I'd be, very very proud to have him as an instructor. To be honest, Steve, he's really quite knowledgeable, and he's
very keen.
Yeah, very keen. And I love that he sort of backs it up as well. He'll go out there and prove it. So once again, it was an absolute pleasure. We'd love to have loads of guests on the show. So. Who knows? Maybe in the future we'll have someone new. We don't know. Yeah. Okay. But in the meantime, guys, if you like that and if you did enjoy that, please head over to first and foremost head over to Rash's Facebook and get in contact with him. Blah blah blah. But if you liked his content, if you like the Kung Fu podcast, go over to Facebook. You'll find us on SGN Martial Arts and give us a like. Yeah. Obviously on YouTube, give us a subscribe and all the rest of it. And we're on Podbean. Subscribe to us there. And
get in touch with Sifu Patel.
Yes, Sifu Patel. That's right. Yeah, go for it. And I'll put all the links on the description as well. And guys, so we look forward to the next one. We've got a bit of bitching for the next podcast, but hey, that's just us. We love a good cat fight.
Technically, we're not bitching, are we? Technically, we're just answering people's questions. Or
not so much questions, but blanket statements. But we shall see. We shall see. Let's have fun with it. Guys, thanks again for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. My name's James Still, and you are.
I'm Steve Newby. The last time I looked.
And once again, we'd like to thank good old Sifu Rash Patel for joining us.
Yeah.
Take care. We'll see you next time on the Kung Fu Podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Concentrate on your enemy's weak points. The eyes, the throat, the knackers.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Karate punch is like an iron bar, whack. A Kung Fu punch is like an iron chain with an iron ball attached to the end and it goes whang.
Can you break a log like that?
Don't know. Never been attacked by a tree.
Rash!